The Holy Torah in Parashat Emor tells us about the Kohanim, being the sons of Aaron. Lets us know about who they can marry, who they can't marry, reminds us about how we need to behave when we're around Kohanim, and in fact, even if we're not. It tells us about all of the different details of the Kohen's life, but it does a few things that perhaps we need to ask. Number one, if they're Kohanim, they're obviously Bnei Aaron, they're obviously the sons of Aaron. So why is the purpose of reminding us that they're the sons of Aaron? Even more so, what does it have to do with you and I if we're not Kohanim? And last but not least, what's the connection between the Kohen, who he can marry, who he can't marry, to the blasphemer at the end of the parasha? And how is that story one of the most important stories in your life today? This and much more is going to be discussed in tonight's shiur, including many questions from a live crowd that's online, that's without mercy when they ask questions. A couple of hours worth of questions, many interesting answers, a little bit of frustration, some issues, but needless to say, lots of truth, lots of kedusha, and lots of fun. Thanks for watching. Enjoy it, share it, and remember, the whole purpose of everything that we do is to be holy. B'Shem HaShem na'aseh v'natzliach, shiur Torah, bruchim habayim. We're back here on our weekly shiur, Stump the Rabbi. We're after some divrei Torah, B'ezrat Hashem. You guys will ask some questions, and B'ezrat Hashem HaKadosh Baruch Hu will give us the answers. Tonight's shiur is for the refuah shlema of Rabbanit Sarah bat Anat, Rav Ephraim ben Shulamit, Rabbanit Levana bat Sarah, Avi Mori David ben Nesriya, Imi Morati Doris bat Zora, and all of Am Yisrael and all the righteous Noahis that continue to watch and learn from our shiurim, and certainly support our organization and all the wonderful things that we're doing, Baruch Hashem. Brief update, lots of good things are happening at the organization. We have a huge order of books coming to Eretz Yisrael and as well to the United States. Both my book as well as Rabbi Ephraim's books. Both are in Hebrew only right now, but we have a huge order coming into the US as well as Israel. We'll be adding it to the Kiruv stores for people to order them for free and distribute them in their communities once they're here. In Israel is supposed to get it, B'ezrat Hashem, I believe sometime next week, and the U.S. it's going to be sometime next month, so probably another 3 or 4 weeks. B'ezrat Hashem. But certainly there's other things to order from the Kiruv store. Go to kiruvstore.org, and there's plenty of things that you can order for free to distribute in your community, both in English as well as in Hebrew. Aside from that, also want to remind everybody that we have a extraordinary new program, new podcast coming up soon. It's an interview of some of you that are watching, some of you that are literally have been a part of our lives, and we've been part of yours for the last several years, of the tshuva stories, the extraordinary journeys of tshuva that different people have had. Anybody that wants to be part of the show can contact me or send an email to sunny@bezrathashem.org, and we'll do our best to coordinate with you to do a recording as well as to include you in the first season. Right now, we are pretty much booked. We have already about 20 or so recordings, but B'ezrat Hashem, there's going to be other seasons to follow because there's, Baruch Hashem, a lot of stories. So with that being said, let's get into it. There's a lot of interesting things that we can learn from Parashat Emor. And this is after we have learned about the death of Aaron HaKohen's sons. We've learned about the different warnings that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us in the when the issues of morality. We've learned a lot of different things over the last several weeks. Things that we could apply to our lives today in this upside-down world, things that we could really take into account into the world today as we start seeing things becoming more and more shaky. Although I don't follow the markets anywhere nearly as closely as I used to when I was on Wall Street for 20 years, or almost 20 years, News comes through one way or the other. People ask questions, different types of things hit my desk, and quite frankly, some of the things that we talked about, I would say about a year ago, of how there's going to be a major crisis happening, it seems like some of these things are quite in fact happening. There are major problems in the banking sector where the small banks are simply collapsing. And by small banks, usually when people hear a small bank, they think it's it's a little rinky-dink operation with maybe 2 or 3 or 5 little local branches. A couple of farmers and plumbers are their biggest clients, and that's it. No. Small banks in America is by no means small in comparison to the rest of the world. And when you see a company like First Republic that less than a year ago was worth nearly $30 billion. That was their market valuation, nearly $30 billion. Branches around the country. We actually used to deal with them. Quite frankly, they're a terrible bank. But to go from $30 billion to completely bankrupt inside of a few weeks is literally unbelievable. Even in 2008, when I was still in the market, things like this didn't quite happen as quickly. Now, this is after the couple of other banks, SVG and the Signature Bank, already declared bankruptcy. Now there's another one today that's announcing that they're up for sale, which in so many words means that according to the standards of the FDIC, what's required from the banking industry, they simply don't have enough money to close the month. That's in essence what it means. If we're looking for a buyer, that means that we cannot sustain ourselves. And this is a bank that just literally in the last year was worth close to $15 billion. But now this other bank is also going to be declaring bankruptcy literally within the next couple of weeks, if not by tomorrow. So you're seeing that these banks are just disappearing off the map. Of course, some of the larger banks are capitalizing on it and certainly getting the backings of the government, the backings of different regulation that they have, the laws. But it shows you of how the world is a world of lies, where one day you're sitting pretty, you're thinking that you are worth $30 billion, and a few weeks later, you're worth literally zero. They couldn't even sell themselves like a normal bank. Banks used to merge and sell themselves on a regular basis, especially the small banks in the 1990s. When I first got into the business, it was a very big deal to invest in small banks because you were almost guaranteed somebody was going to buy them. That's how all the big banks became big. But now you have these companies that by 20 years ago standards, they're considered big banks. Today, they're considered small banks, worth $30 billion. The next day, zero. They couldn't even sell themselves for a reasonable price, at least to get their shareholders something. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And then you have one after another collapsing. Why? Because they couldn't handle interest rates going up. If you cannot handle the fluctuation in interest rates, that means you should have never been in the banking sector to begin with. This is like saying a fireman cannot handle fires. Or better yet, he cannot handle water. Or a policeman cannot handle a gun. Sort of like the policemen in Israel. Unfortunately, the government is such a Zionist idiot type of mentality that they put the fear of God into the soldiers and to the policemen in their fighting of crime, where if they kill the terrorist that has killed several people already, but if they kill him after he stopped killing and he's not in the process of killing anybody else, that policeman, that soldier is going to jail. So it's just, and in so many words, the police over there are literally worse than the victims. Now, if you told the police officers in New York, if you told the police officers in New Jersey, in other states, in Texas, you can't handle a gun, you can't shoot the criminal, they'll look at you like, what? What are you talking about? How do you want me to be a police officer? When I tried to explain some of these things to Rabbi Ephraim about how different it is, how the regulation is different, how the laws are different, how the attitude is different. Where literally, if somebody gets pulled over here in America, and for whatever reason or another, the cop has has the hots for this guy, doesn't like him, thinks that he's going to do something wrong, tells you to put your hands on the steering wheel. If you don't obey, after the couple of times that he tells you to do it, you're going to see a gun pointed at you. And guess what? Many times we've heard horrible stories. This is by no means justifying this aggressive behavior, but just to show you the difference in mentality. But if a person is pulled over by a police officer, or even simply stopped in the middle of the street for whatever reason, and that person just goes into their pocket, even if it's to, take out a cigarette, take out their wallet, immediately the police officers take their guns out and sometimes act too quickly and shoot. And unfortunately, there is one too many stories like that. So if you tell a police officer you cannot use a gun anymore, you're simply going to have all of the police officers in America quit. Why? Because they need them. They need to protect themselves. They need to protect the people. Fine, no problem. But when you tell the people that are running the banking sector that they're supposed to be able to handle interest rate fluctuation and the fluctuation of the investments that the bank is putting the people's money and the bank's money into, the treasuries and so on, they have to simply act accordingly. They can't. They simply can't. And they're collapsing one after another, meaning that if you're not a bank that's comprised of investment bankers, experts in trading, similar to the people that I used to rub elbows with, your bank is going to go bankrupt. And one of the things I would recommend to you guys, I don't know where you're located, obviously there's people all over the world that are watching these shiurim. One thing I can recommend to you guys, I can't tell you about what are you going to do with your investments, buy, sell, I've already spoken about that. Baruch Hashem, some people listened to me, some people didn't listen to me. That's water under the bridge. One thing I can tell you, whatever bank you're using right now, make sure it's a really big bank. You know, the sort of bank that's too big to fail. A Chase Bank, a TD Bank, one of these really gigantic banks where even if it fails, where it does something stupid and they lose a bunch of money, the government has to bail them out. Why? Because if they don't, the entire system will collapse again, even worse than what it did 15 years ago. So make sure that whatever bank you're using is a big bank. And sometimes it's people say, oh, you know what? Maybe we should just have everything in cash. Cash in today's world is worthless. Having cash is like having a collection of marbles. It's not worth anything. You can't really do much with it, especially if it's a significant amount of cash. If you have a few $100s, obviously everybody needs some type of money in cash. But if you're talking about significant money, enough money to buy something, to buy a car, to buy a house, needless to say, to buy things that are even more expensive than your typical house, this is not the type of money you could have in cash. Why? Simple. You can't use it. You can't go into some place and say, listen, I want to buy this building with this $1 million for of $100 bills. They're simply going to arrest you. They're not going to accept your money. They're going to think you're a mobster. They're going to think that you're some type of mafia. They're not going to accept this guy. So cash is useless. Bitcoins have been useless since the beginning. And people have to realize that it's not about that the world is collapsing and everything is going to go to zero quite yet, but rather HaKadosh Baruch Hu is simply, pushing the button just to see when we're going to start paying attention to him and realize that it's all an illusion. The house that you've spent the last 2 years building and investing every penny into, it's an illusion. That fancy car that you're overpaying for, it's an illusion. Those expensive pieces of jewelry that you made such a big deal about that you were almost willing to divorce your husband if he didn't buy them for you, illusion. Those $500 or $1,000 pair of shoes, illusion. All of those things are an illusion. But unfortunately, people get so wrapped up into these expensive watches and rings and cars and the whole fancy schmancy stuff that the Satan keeps them busy and away from thinking about what really actually matters in life. So what HaShem is doing now is trying to show you, look, you see that bank? That bank has been around for decades. A year ago, it was worth $30 billion, with a B. That's bigger than some countries. Today, it's worth 0. Why? A few morons applied for a job pretending like they could actually trade. All they had was maybe a 2-year college degree, and they were able to click on a computer. They got the job, and they managed a $30 billion bank, and they managed to literally put it under the ground. And they weren't the only ones, don't worry. There are plenty other ones in Silicon Valley Bank, Signature Bank, Pacific Bank. These regional banks don't have experts like the Goldman Sachs's and the Chase's and the big banks of the world. They don't have the budget for it. They don't have the know-how for it. They never needed it. Why? Because you had 15 years of a bull market. 15 years of an illusion becoming magnified by the day. So of course, a lot of the conspiracy theories are going to say, see, this is proof that there's going to be a new world order, and they want everything to become digitized, and they want everything to become zero, and everyone's going to become slaves, and some other guy that has nothing to do with his life made a whole movie about how everybody's going to live in little bunkers with little helicopters flying over them and telling them that they're not allowed to leave the house. Please, stop wasting your time in living in illusions. That's an illusion, and that's an illusion. The only thing that's real is the instructions from HaKadosh Baruch Hu of how to live and what to do when certain things change. How to live and what to do when certain things change. How to adjust. So Baruch Hashem, we have the Torah. Because the Torah is something that doesn't change. No matter the weather, no matter the times. And this is one of the things that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is trying to push in this week's parasha, but not referring to financial crisis, not referring to anything I just spoke about. Rather referring about whether you know who you are or who you want to be. Who you are if you are already a Jew. Who you want to be if you want to be a Jew. And who you should be if you're not so sure if you should be a Jew yet. Why? There's nothing greater than being a Jew. And anyone that can convert certainly should as soon as possible. And simply do anything they can to do it. Why? The more you learn Torah, the more you realize how much you need it. And unfortunately, some people don't realize it, and they have opportunities to convert, and they simply don't do it. Others don't try hard enough. Others have many difficulties where even if they try, their test is bigger than most people, where they want to do it already yesterday, but they're probably not going to succeed for another year or 2 years or 5 years. Everything is decided by HaShem of when you're going to succeed, especially when it comes to conversion and everything else. But a person has to exert their effort, because we're not judged based on our success. We're judged based on our effort. So here we have Parashat Emor. Parashat Emor, first and foremost, as we discussed last night, gives us a little bit of a slap in the face. For all of us husbands, for all of the wives, everyone gets a little slap in the face at the beginning of the parasha. Why? It tells you how marriage is supposed to be and what do you have to show for it. כי אם לשערו הקרוב אליו לאמו ולאביו ולבנו ולביתו ולאחיו. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, these Kohanim, they're only allowed to, become impure. In case somebody dies, they're only allowed to show up to the funeral, to be part of it, if that person that died is a close relative of theirs. And the first, it talks about the father, the mother, the son, the daughter, but when it comes to wife, it says, it's the first thing mentioned. Leshe'ero. What's leshe'ero? His flesh. His flesh. If his flesh died, meaning his other half, meaning a part of him, then of course he's allowed to impurify himself. So here the Torah is teaching us what is the difference between marriage according to the Torah and marriage according to the world. If it's marriage according to the world, then it's more like a business transaction. So long as the interest rates stay down, so long as you fulfill my needs, so long as things are easy, I'm in. The second things change, the second things go down, or God forbid they go up, I'm out of here. I'm out of here. People break marriages like literally they change gas from the gas stations. As soon as things get difficult, they leave. Why? Because she's not part of his flesh. He's not part of her flesh. Marriage, according to the Torah, on the other hand, there is no such thing as thinking maybe we should get a divorce. That's not even a thought. Why? Because how do you divorce yourself? We have a problem? Sure we have problems. But we fix them together. We have fun? Sure we have fun. And we have fun together. All of the things that happen in life, it's together. Why? She's me and I'm her. So anyone that doesn't feel like their spouse is a part of their flesh, first thing in this parasha is to remind you, you're not doing a good job. If you're overly consumed with your business, with your hobbies, with your financial problems, with all of these other things, and the thought of your spouse simply doesn't appear in your head, unless you're pressed for it, you're not doing a good job. So that's the first thing we mentioned. After that, we see that HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells us that these Kohanim are treated differently. They're only allowed to marry certain people. They're only allowed to be in certain places. But interestingly enough, in the beginning of the parasha, it says, Vayomer Adonai el Moshe, Emor el HaKohanim, bnei Aaron. Hashem says to Moshe, say to the Kohanim, the sons of Aaron. Well, obviously the Kohanim are the sons of Aaron. Who else are they going to be? The sons of Dan? The sons of Shmuel? The sons of... Who else? Of course they're the sons of Aaron. Hashem specifically made sure that that's the case. So why mention the sons of Aaron if we already know if they're Kohanim? By default, that means that they're sons of Aaron. The Zohar HaKadosh in Parashat Emor says that's because HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants you to know who you are. Meaning, remind you. Because the evil inclination, the Yetzer Hara, that comes in the form of business, fame, fortune, lust, food, all types of things, all of the materialism of the world, which certainly you need part of it to survive, you need part of it to do all types of things, but it's not life. It's not the purpose of life. It's simply tools, no different than a hammer or a nail. But the evil inclination, the Satan, convinces you that that's the purpose and helps you forget who you really are and why you're even here. And if you don't know who you are, then certainly you don't know your purpose. And if you don't know your purpose, it is impossible for you to fulfill it. And a person that lives a purposeless life, unfortunately, will suffer more than anybody else, both during their life and after, during the eternal life, where there's judgment. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to make sure that even the Kohanim, this special group of people that are part of Am Yisrael, that have unique jobs, unique people that they're allowed to marry, unique conditions if they don't marry, unique conditions if they violate certain laws. For example, one of the things we see is that a bat Kohen, a daughter of a Kohen, not even a Kohen himself, but a daughter of a Kohen, if she commits adultery, a horrendous crime, which is punishable by death at the time of Moshe Rabbeinu and the Sanhedrin. Today, unfortunately, it's praised to commit adultery in some parts of the society. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, if somebody commits adultery, there's a death penalty. Today, it's a heavenly death penalty. But if it's a daughter of a Kohen that committed adultery, she suffers even more. Her death penalty is even worse than any other adulterer. Why? Because she not only made a sin of committing adultery, but she also shamed the Kohen family. And therefore, her death is fire. It's the debated among Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and the Chachamim of whether fire is worse than stoning. He says fire is worse than stoning. The rest of the Chachamim paskin that stoning is the worst death penalty. Either way, the person dies according, that's what you're thinking. But trust me when I tell you, there is a lot of value to it. You go to Gemara Masechet Sanhedrin, there's an entire section that discusses why fire is worse, stoning is worse, the details of how it actually happens. It's not like they just have a bonfire and they throw somebody in there. It's something completely different. They take, in so many words, they take liquid fire and they pour it down the throat of a person, and the person dies from inside. They don't burn the outside. Point being is, this horrific death penalty is worse than the death penalty that another woman that was an adulterer gets. It's worse. It's worse than a death penalty than even the guy that she cheated on her husband with. Meaning, she was married to a Kohen, she cheated on the Kohen with some guy, both of them get a death penalty. Hers is worse than his though. Why? Because she shamed the name of the Kohen. So we see here that the Kohen is reminded of who they are, this special lineage, this special people within a people, these special conditions and warnings. But why do we all need to do it? We're not all Kohanim, only some of us are Kohanim. Because some of the conditions that they have are also a reminder to us of what we have. You see, one of the conditions that the Kohen has if he wants to get married is that he is not allowed to marry a Zonah. What is a Zonah? As we discussed last night in more details, it's any woman that was intimate with somebody that's forbidden to her. This is incest. This is also intimacy before marriage, because she's nida. Meaning that a woman that has a boyfriend, according to the Torah, is given the same name as a prostitute, because all she's doing is giving herself without reason. The fact that the prostitute charges money for it simply makes her a better capitalist. But in the eyes of heaven, they're both called the same. Why? She treats herself like a garbage pail. You're treating yourself like a garbage pail. Why? You're a princess. You're the daughter of God. Why are you allowing all these people to touch you? Modesty is such a critical part of a woman that if she's not modest, she has no concept of how to respect herself, because she doesn't know her self-worth. She's giving herself to whoever and whatever. Some women get to such a horrible condition spiritually that they become addicted to the physical lust, as if they're a horse. This is a tragedy that has become very much standard in society, and rarely do you ever hear anybody talking about it, at least not in a realistic way. Now, nobody wants their daughter to be that. Nobody wants their wife to do that. But they have no problem if somebody else's daughter or wife is doing it. It's no problem that somebody else is suffering, but you, no, you want everything perfect. This is the hypocrisy in the world of lies. So a woman that values herself, first and foremost, needs to look at the conditions here. Do I want to, even if you don't want to marry a Kohen, do you really want to have the title of Zonah next to your name in the eyes of your Creator, your Father in heaven? Obviously not. Now what about if you made a mistake? You didn't know this? You can do tshuva, tzedikah. You can do tshuva. Stop making the sin and start fresh. Start fresh. From now on, you stop sinning. This is worth a fortune. This is worth even more than if you would have never sinned. Why? Because now that you know the taste of sin, if you will, and you still stop it, the Gemara in Masechet Brachot says that a person that does tshuva is considered higher than someone that has never sinned. Because a person that does tshuva still has the desires for the forbidden. Whereas a person that's never sinned doesn't have the same desires. Has desires, but not the same. It's sort of like a person that tried drugs, got addicted to them, and then stopped. Certainly still has certain desires that are very, very different than somebody who never tried drugs. So here the Torah Kedusha is telling us, my dear Bat Israel, don't change the rules. Don't change your value. Know who you are. Know who you're supposed to be. The Torah then tells us that the Kohen Gadol can only marry a virgin because we cannot take a risk that if the woman lied, or if the woman was promiscuous, if the woman did things that are forbidden, that the Kohen would marry her. Why? Because then all of his kids would not be considered Kohanim, they would be considered halal. And the halacha is that if a Kohen marries a woman that's forbidden to him, the Beit Din forces him to divorce her. Why? You're a special person. You're within a special conditions. Furthermore, we see that certain people that care less about the laws of God violate his name, desecrate his name, go against him in different ways. There are certain sins that have the punishment of din karet. And Torah says, "V'nichreta nefesh ha'im milfanai ani Adonai." That soul will be cut off from before me. I am HaShem, says HaShem. Chapter 22, verse 3. Now, Onkelos, when he translates these words, he says, the person shall be eliminated. Anashahu min kadamai. Now, the verse itself says nefeshahu, meaning the verse says the soul will be cut off. But Onkelos translates the person will be cut off, to teach us that when there's a cutoff, when there's a din karet, it's a multifaceted punishment. Both the body and the soul get punished. And therefore, Onkelos says the person, meaning everything. He has a punishment in this world, din karet. Person who doesn't understand what din karet is, that means that he's liable to die young, liable to have his kids die during his lifetime. Horrible, horrible things during the time. This is the reason why the sages would celebrate their 60th birthday, because once you've lived long enough to get to 60 years old, that means that you weren't punished for the din karet in this life. Doesn't mean that you don't have din karet on your account, but at least you didn't get punished in this world. So Onkelos wants to make sure that we understand that it's not just the soul that suffers from this crime, but the body too. Furthermore, it warns a daughter of a Kohen, not only for her not to commit adultery because of what we discussed, but also to be very, very selective with who she marries. A daughter of a Kohen should not marry a commoner. If she marries a commoner, she's in essence kicked out of the family, if you will. She still obviously is able to visit. She's still able to come for a barbecue. There's no problem with that part. But I'm talking about the spiritually elevated status of the Kohen that she had is lost if she marries a commoner. Why? She's no longer allowed to eat from the korban that are only for the Kohen, because she married a commoner. In fact, the Gemara in Masechet Nida says that a man should never allow his daughter to marry a commoner. What's a commoner? A person that's a regular person, ignoramus, doesn't know much Torah, doesn't really care much about it, only focuses about business, only focuses about sports, only focuses about materialism, doesn't really spend much time knowing the purpose of life or caring about the purpose of life. Never allow your daughters to marry such a person. The Gemara says it's like allowing your daughter to go marry a lion. Just like a lion does what he does and then throws away the lioness, those people that don't learn Torah also do the same thing to their wives. Why? For them it's all physical. There's nothing special about it. And as soon as the rates go up or the rates go down or there's too much pressure, they change. They change. It's like changing shirts. They change wives. Never allow your daughter to marry a commoner, a regular person that doesn't want Torah to be a priority in their life. Now, this doesn't mean that everybody has to become a Torah scholar, but certainly everyone has to learn Torah in order to know not just why we live here, but how to live here in this world. Later on, the Torah talks about the Korbanot that we're allowed to bring to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This is something we already heard about in Genesis, but here, the Torah tells us that the cattle or the flock that are brought as a sacrifice cannot be blemished in any way. They have to be beautiful, perfect animals. If they have any type of blemish on them, they're missing an eye, they have a broken lip, missing an ear, an extra toe, an extra limb, extra leg, you can no longer bring them as a sacrifice. You can eat them. If they're, kosher animals, you can still eat them, but you cannot bring them as a sacrifice. Now, the question I had when I saw this was, wait a minute. You have yourself a cow. You have a cow. Now this cow, you know what it wants in life? It wants to be like the cow of Eliyahu Hanavi. Eliyahu Hanavi, when he went and fought against Achav and all 900 of his false prophets, he told them, listen, you have these false prophets. They say that there's, their idols are talking, their idols know what they're, okay, fine. Bring all of them to the mountain. I'm going to bring a korban, and all of them are going to bring a sacrifice. And whoever has a fire from heaven consume their sacrifice, that we know is the real prophet. Now Izevel, the wife of Achav, the Shait, Imach Shema Vezichra, she knew they're all false prophets, but she loved idolatry and she hated the Torah even more than Achav. She was a Klipah and a half. She made sure to kill every prophet she could get her hands into. Now, this Zonah, she made sure that not all of the prophets go. Why? What if this plan doesn't work? What do you mean, what the plans work? What do? They had a bama, they had like a stage that they're going to put the sacrifice on, the animal, and it's supposed to have a fire from heaven. How are you going to have a fire from heaven when you're a false prophet? So they had a guy hide overnight under the stage, and he was supposed to light the fire from below. So she said, listen, if the plan doesn't work, we're going to lose all of our false prophets. So only 450 out of the 900 prophets showed up. Of course, the plan didn't work because the HaKadosh Baruch Hu sent one of his messengers, which was a snake, to go kill the guy that was hiding under the stage. Eliyahu Hanavi has the fire of heaven come down. It consumes the cow. It consumes the stage. It consumes the water. It consumes the ground. Literally, a special fire from heaven came for Eliyahu Hanavi. Now, on the way to the stage, Eliyahu Hanavi is bringing two cows. He's bringing the two cows. One for the Reshaim, one for the wicked people, one for himself. One of the cows starts talking to Eliyahu Hanavi. He says, I don't understand, it's not fair. Why do I have to be the cow that goes to the idol worshippers? And my brother, my twin brother over here, can go with you. For HaShem, I want to be it. What does that mean? First of all, it means this cow has some sechel. It knows what it's about to happen to it. And it's perfectly happy. Why? It wants to be a sacrifice. But it doesn't want to be a sacrifice for idol worshippers. Eliyahu Hanavi tells her, don't worry. More Kiddush Hashem is going to come from you than even your brother. Why? Because everyone's going to see these are false prophets. And therefore they're going to do tshuva. But the second thing we learn is that this cow wants to be sacrificed. That's his dream in life. And Hashem opened its mouth to speak to Eliyahu Hanavi just like he opened the mouth of the donkey of Bilam. So, back to our question, what if you have a cow, and this cow, its dream in life is to become a sacrifice to God. But unfortunately, it's born with a fifth leg. All of his friends and family members have 4 legs. He has 5 legs. One hanging out from the side. Now, is it his fault that he has a mum, that he has a defect, and he can't achieve his dream? Sort of like the Kohen. Or exactly like the Kohen. Where it says that if the Kohen has a unibrow, or he has any other defect, he's blind, he's deaf, he has an extra limb, an extra finger, any type of defect, he cannot be one of the people that brings the sacrifices. There are other special jobs that he can do within the Bet HaMikdash, but the high-level jobs he can't get. Why? He has a defect. Now, who created this cow with an extra leg? Who created this Kohen with a unibrow? Or with a extra finger? Who created him? God. So why is God telling us, these people, they have a defect. They can't serve me? Wait a minute. Why not? I didn't do anything. I didn't choose to be born with an extra leg. I didn't choose to have an extra finger. Why is it my fault that I was born blind? I want to serve you. I want to be a sacrifice. I want to be a Kohen. That's a question. But the simple answer. What's the simple answer? As we said last night, the Gemara in Masechet Chulin says there's no such thing as death without sin. No such thing as suffering without sin. Meaning, HaKadosh Baruch Hu runs the world based on measure for measure. Something happens, you do something, there's going to be something that's going to affect, cause and effect. Now, sometimes the cause is during a person's life, but the effect is after they die. And in fact, the effect is that they have to come back to this life as a reincarnation, as we discussed in last night's Jewish intimacy shiur in details. He has to come back as an animal. He has to come back as another human being. He has to come back either way to fix the mistake that he made, fix the mistake she made. So you see, the Kohen is not born with a defect for no reason. The animal is also not born with a defect for a reason. And their desire to serve Hashem is that high also for a reason. It's all part of what was the original sin that they did in their previous life that caused them to come back here in the first place. Meaning that HaKadosh Baruch Hu saw that this person made a mistake. Now, he didn't want to send this person, this soul, to complete annihilation and destroy the soul. It didn't warrant that, but it still needed to fix. Needed to fix this mistake, so he had to bring it into this life where it would actually desire to do something that it can't do. Why? Because Hashem did not allow it to do it. It didn't meet the standards. So that suffering that they get is part of their tikkun. Is part of their tikkun. Meaning that even the animal, it's no such thing as, it's not my fault, I didn't choose to be born this way. No, you did. When you made that act that was against God, you chose this. You chose this. Next, we learn about how we have to be very careful when we have animals. There's certain animals that have defects and they're not allowed to be sacrifices, but sometimes those defects are not what they're born with, but rather what happens to them during their life from the hands of man. And Torah says that if they have the defect where their testicles are crushed, pulverized, detached, or severed, do not bring as an offering before Hashem, and do not do so in your hand. Now we understand the literal of where it says, do not bring it as a sacrifice before Hashem. But what does it mean, do not do so in your land? Chachamim explain that this is the prohibition of neutering animals. Not allowed to neuter animals. You have an animal, you don't want it to procreate, sell the animal. Not allowed to, if you're a Jew, you're not allowed to neuter animals. Why? It is considered cruel. Same thing if a person has two different types of animals, let's say a ox and a donkey. He's not allowed to have them work side by side. Why? It's considered cruelty. One is stronger than the other, and it could create a problem. It certainly creates a problem immediately. So much so the Gemara Masechet Makot says that if we see somebody that has a donkey and another species of an animal, could be an ox, could be a goat, any two species that are working side by side, immediately you stop the guy, you warn him, he doesn't want to listen, bring him to the Beit Din, he gets Makot, tach, tach, tach. Why? But it's just animals. Yeah, it's just animals. Just animals created by God. Cannot be cruel to animals. Next, the Torah talks about the calendar of how the Jewish holidays are unique, unlike the holidays of other religions, falsianity, the heresy of Islam, where their holidays will base themselves on a Gregorian calendar. We have our Hebrew calendar, our Jewish calendar, that is dependent on the solar, on the moon. But it's not just the moon, it's also the sun, also the solar. Both lunar and solar. Lunar is the moon, solar is the sun. Why do we need both? Because Torah tells us that our holidays are always on the same lunar day. So for example, Pesach has to be on the 15th of Nisan. Nisan is based on a lunar calendar. But the Torah says that Pesach also has to be during the spring, which is determined based on the solar, the sun. So this is why the Hebrew calendar, every 2 to 3 years, there is a leap year. There's an extra month that is added to the calendar at the end of Adar, before Nisan starts. It's called Adar Bet, second Adar. The Mishnah in Masechet Pesachim, in chapter 4, the last Mishnah, talks about how Chizkiyahu made a mistake and he added a month, not at the end of Adar, but already once Nisan started. And the Chachamim rebuked. They didn't support him on that one. It was a mistake. But here we see that the calendar of the Jews is very different. Very different. We move on, and we see that at the end of the parasha, there's one of the most extraordinary stories you're ever going to hear. Seems like it's not related to this parasha. Seems like doesn't make sense. Why is it here? Well, all of a sudden, after we heard about all the extraordinary conditions and amazing things that happened, the holidays, the laws of the holidays, the Kohanim, who they can marry, who they can't marry, we get into the story of this guy that didn't like the ruling of the Beit Din of Moshe Rabbeinu. What happened? It says, "Vayitze ben isha Yisraelit v'hu ben ish Mitzri betoch bnei Yisrael v'yinatzu b'machane ben הישראלית ואיש הישראלי. ויקוב בן האישה הישראלית את השם ויקלל ויביאו אותו אל משה בשם אמו שלומית בת דברי למטה דן ויניחו במשמר לפרוש להם על פי אדוני." Translation: the son of the Israelite woman went out. What's the Israelite woman? Chachamim say this is Bat Israel. Bat Israel, a Jewish woman. The son of an Israelite woman went out, and he was the son of an Egyptian man among the children of Israel. And they quarreled in the camp, and the son of the Israelite woman and the Israelite man. the son of the Israelite woman, explicitly pronounced the name, and he cursed. So they brought him to Moshe, and the name of his mother was Shlomit, the daughter of Divri, of the tribe of Dan. What happened here? We've heard this story before. I have a little clip that we made. We publicized recently. But what is this? What's going on here? What's new? This guy was born out of an unfortunate event that happened to Shlomit Bat Divri. Shlomit Bat Divri was a overly friendly woman saying hello to all types of people, including the Egyptians when they were in Egypt. So one of the Egyptians said, oh, she says hello to me. She probably likes me. And he decided to rape her. When her husband found out, the Egyptian decided that he's going to kill her husband. And that's the Egyptian that Moshe Rabbeinu killed before he fled Egypt. Now, years passed. The son that came out of that rape is this guy. And he figured, listen, my father, biological father, was the Egyptian. There's no tribe. My mother, she came from the tribe of Dan. So let me go and put my tent with the tribe of Dan, because at the time of Moshe Rabbeinu, all of the tribes had their own section. They didn't mix and match. There was a tribe of Dan, the tribe of Shimon, tribe of Yosef. Everybody had their tents, all their people. So he wanted to go and put his tent next to the tribe of Dan. The tribe of Dan says, sorry, buddy, you're not part of us. The tribe is based on the father, not the mother. You have no tribe. He quarreled with them. No, yes, let's go to the Bedin. Go to the Bedin of Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu says, according to the Torah, you have no tribe. When the Mashiach comes, he's going to determine where you go. Where the converts go, where you go, where all of the people that, in essence, don't have the traditional lineage that a natural born Jew has. This is not a, we don't like you, we're persecuting you. This is the rules. He doesn't like the rules. He doesn't like the rules so much that he ends up cursing God. Now, if you see this in the Gemara in Masechet Sanhedrin, this and many other times, you'll see where the Gemara never actually says cursing God, it says blessing God. Why? Because it's completely unheard of to even think that someone would have the audacity to curse God. So they use a euphemism, where they say, oh, he blessed God. Same thing with when there's punishment for Am Yisrael. So the Gemara says, punishment to the enemies of Am Yisrael. In reality, it's punishment to Am Yisrael. Why? It's completely the opposite of the purpose of the world. Hashem doesn't want to punish Am Yisrael. He has to, and he does. But again, the sages were very careful with the words that they chose. And we see that this person is arrested. He's brought to Moshe Rabbeinu. And as Onkelos says, he provoked the anger of Hashem by cursing his name. Why does Onkelos say he provoked the anger of Hashem? Why does he say he angered Hashem? Because again, if he says he angered Hashem, you would think Hashem has anger. He has feelings. He's trying to tell you that for the human ear to understand, certain words are used so you can understand why there's a punishment. He didn't do something good. And Hashem says, this guy, make sure he gets the worst death penalty. And all of the people that witnessed it, all of the people that judged it, everyone that's involved has to press on his head, on his way to the death, on his way to the death penalty of stoning, for being a blasphemer. Every one of the people that was involved, that saw this, that heard this, every one of them has to press on his head and say, your blood is in your hands, meaning you did this to yourself. Don't blame Moshe, don't blame the Torah, don't blame God. You did this to yourself. Why? You tried to change the rules. The Torah doesn't change. Now, why do we need to know this? And needless to say, why is this after everything we said about the Kohanim? What's the connection here? As we said in the beginning of the parasha, Hashem wanted to make sure that the Kohanim knew who they are. You're not just a Kohen, you come from Aaron HaKohen. You're not just a Jew, you come from Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. In fact, if you look 1, 2, 3, 4 generations of any Jew, you will find that it was certainly connected to some big tzaddik that saw Eliyahu Hanavi. Big tzaddik, there was a big rabbi, big posek in his generation. If you go further, eventually you may even arrive at the connection to Eliyahu Hanavi, a connection to David HaMelech, a connection to Rabbi Akiva, a connection to any number of tzaddikim you could imagine. Certainly every Jew has the tzaddikim connected. Why? Because kulanu bnei ish echad nachnu. We're all sons of a single man. So, HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to make sure the Kohanim know exactly where they came from. The rest of Am Yisrael know exactly where you came from. Sometimes people don't learn Torah, don't know anything, and they think, oh, you know what, let me just buy it. Rav Bakshi Doron once said, he was in this keilah that had an ignoramus, come up to him and says, Kvod Rav, listen, I want to become a Kohen. And Rav Bakshi Doron says, I'm sorry, you can't become a Kohen. No, I'm going to pay a lot of money. I'll buy it, $10,000. I'm sorry, you can't become a Kohen, can't buy keuna. Okay, fine, Rabbi, $50,000, I'll give it to you. No, it doesn't make a difference. You cannot buy being a Kohen. He goes, okay, Rav, you're a good negotiator. $100,000 cash, credit, whatever you want. $100,000. The Rav says to him, listen, my dear son, you cannot buy a keuna. You can't be a Kohen. And anyway, why do you even want to be a Kohen? He says to him, listen, my father was a Kohen, my grandfather was a Kohen, so I want to be a Kohen. He was so ignorant that he thought that the way his father and his grandfather became Kohanim, they bought the keuna. Why? He didn't realize that he was the son of Aaron HaKohen, the descendants of Aaron HaKohen. A person can sometimes see more of himself in all types of gangster rappers, athletes, businessmen, celebrities, all types of Hollywood types of people than he sees himself as a Jew. He thinks that this celebrity that just signed a deal, some movie that made $50 million is better than being connected to Rabbi Akiva Iger, to Noam Elimelech, Rabbi Elimelech Minizhinsk, to Rabbi Zusha, to Gdolei Elyon. He thinks it's better to be connected to some Klipah than being connected to someone that HaKadosh Baruch Hu spoke to him. Since we mentioned Rabbi Elimelech Minizhinsk, there was one time Rabbi Elimelech Minizhinsk was a big help to someone, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, a bat kol came from Shemayim and told him, because of what you did, I'm going to give you a blessing that for the next 24 hours, whoever you bless, whatever you say, I'm going to fulfill it. Immediately, Rabbi Elimelech is looking for people. Eventually he finds somebody, a woman, a Jewish woman. Didn't look like she was in good condition, very, very poor, very modest, but very poor. He says to her, who are you? She got scared. She goes, no, I don't want anything. I just want to give you a bracha. I want to give you a blessing. She tells him, and he gives her a blessing that she can have a lot of success in all the business endeavors that she does. And she saw that this man, he wasn't like a regular person. He's just, like literally, the sun came out of his face. He was so shiny, so beautiful, so holy. She went home, she told her husband, and she noticed that literally money started pouring in from all types of places. All of a sudden, every business deal that they were doing started working out. They came out of poverty. And sure enough, within a short period of time, they became very wealthy. So wealthy that all of the poor people made sure that this is the place to go to if you want to collect for any reason. And because they knew they got a blessing, they made sure to be very generous with poor people, with anybody that was in need. Because they believed that Eliyahu Hanavi was who gave her the blessing. Years passed. Rabbi Elimelech Milizhinsk and his brother Rabbi Zusha needed to collect some money for Pidyon Shvuim. There were some Jews that were prisoners in the Gentile court system. They needed to free them, and they needed to collect a lot of money. They went to this family's house. They knew there's a wealthy family. They didn't know who, what, when, and how. They went there. As soon as the guy opened the door, it was a butler, and he says, yes, oh, you're collecting. He gave him a gold coin. Because he had permission from the owner of the house that whoever comes, you make sure you give them something, give them a coin. Rabbi Elimelech Milizhinsk and his brother says, no, we need more. Okay, I'll give you a second coin. No, we need much more. He says, okay, well, my master has told me that I can give up to 2 coins. Whoever asks for more, to make sure to go tell him. Okay, so when can we tell him? He goes, he's inside, come see him. And they let these 2 people, they didn't know who they were, but they saw that these are 2 tzaddikim that were very different. They looked homeless, they looked like they were, didn't have fancy clothes or anything. Not like today that every bar mitzvah bachur has a suit for $3,000. No, today, in those days, wasn't exactly money in the middle of the streets. So they went into the house, and as they went into the house, they passed by the wife of this rich man. As soon as she saw them, sweet, I recognize that face. She looked closer, and she started screaming, ah! And passed out. Of course, everybody poured some water on her, woke her up. Oh, are you okay? You okay? He goes, that's Eliyahu Hanavi! That's Eliyahu Hanavi! He probably came to take back the blessing. Rabbi Elimelech Milizhinsk knew exactly who this woman was, and he said, no, don't worry. Number 1, I'm not Eliyahu Hanavi. And number 2, I'm not here to take the blessing. In fact, I'm very happy that my blessing worked and was fulfilled by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. All I'm here for is to ask for your help to give us some money so we can free these Jewish prisoners. Of course, the husband said, here you go, however much you need, I'll give the whole sum. He goes, no, we don't want the whole sum. We want half. Half? Yes, we want half. Why? We want half from you, but we also want the rest of the Jewish people to have the merit to be part of this holy mitzvah. We don't want you to be the only one that gets the mitzvah. We want other Jews to have the mitzvah. So, when a person understands, this is a person that walked among us. This is a person that you could be related to. A person that heard, a bat kol, a person that made a blessing, and it worked. You could either realize your connection and lineage to him, or see yourself being some celebrity or some guru from India. Unfortunately, today, when a person doesn't understand where they came from, they don't know what's Bnei Aaron, what's the sons of Aaron, what's the sons of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, they could literally find more in common with the enemies than they do with their friends, than they do with their brothers. The Igros Moshe, Rav Moshe Feinstein, Alav Shalom, in Yoreh De'ah, Chelek Aleph, Siman 135, asks a question. Somebody asked him a question. He says, how did Rebbe HaKadosh, Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi, allow himself to give a smicha to the criminal grandson of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai? That's the question. What's the story? The Gemara says that the son of Rabbi Elazar ben Rabbi Shimon, meaning the grandson of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, was a beautiful guy that had a Yetzirah from hell. Instead, he didn't go see the rabbis. He went to see the Rabbaniyot. There wasn't a Zonah that he wasn't with. Literally, they chased him. And he fulfilled every lust and every sin he possibly can imagine. When Rebbe HaKadosh heard about this, he immediately went to him and said, listen, come with me and I'll make you the biggest rabbi in the world. Me? Biggest rabbi in the world? What are you talking about? I mean, I don't even go to shul. I don't go to Kollel. I go to parties. Yeah, parties. What are you going to get out of them? Money? I have money. I'm very rich, Rabbi says to him. I give you plenty of money. But even money's not enough. You want respect. You want people to listen to you, serve you, right? I can do that for you. Says, how? You come with me. You sign up to learn Chavruta with one of my students. On day one, I'm giving you a glima, the special suit of the rabbis. You're a rabbi. Everybody has to call you Kvod Rav. Everybody has to stand up for you as soon as they see you. Psh, not only money, get power, get smicha, without even learning. Yeah. Now eventually this kid became a Talmid Chacham, became a real extraordinary person. But there's still a question. How did Rebbe HaKadosh allow himself to do this? I mean, if you made him a rabbi after he passed some tests, after he showed that he did tshuva, fine, great. Resh Lakish was a person that didn't live a righteous life his whole life. He was a criminal. He was head of the mafia at one point. Before he did tshuva, he went after his rabbi, Rabbi Yochanan, and stuck with him his whole life. But before that, he was a criminal. He was the head of the mob. So if you say you made him a rabbi while he was a criminal, it doesn't make sense. But he didn't. He helped him, trained him, taught him, then eventually became a big rabbi. But Rebbe, no, didn't wait for that. On day one, get out of this prostitution house, this Yetzirah, come with me, you're a rabbi. Everybody has to stand up for you. If you're the Sephardic, to kiss your hand. How? That's the question. Rav Moshe Feinstein, B'Kedushato, writes, perhaps Rebbe judged him based on the outcome and knew that if he gives him such a title and make sure that he learns with another Talmid Chacham, he will eventually be a Talmid Chacham and do tshuva. That's a fantastic answer. But the question is, how did Rebbe know this? How did he know that if he learns with another Torah scholar, he will eventually become a Torah scholar himself? I mean, you knew so much that you already gave him the smicha as if he is not only a Torah scholar, a giant. How? How do you do it? Okay, so you could say Ruach HaKodesh, and it wouldn't be a contradiction. It's Rebbe HaKadosh, he wrote the Mishnah. But still, we need a logical reason. A reason that agrees with our Torah. And our final point before you guys start asking questions. Rebbe HaKadosh knew this is going to work. How did he know? Even without Ruach HaKodesh. Rather, Ruach HaTorah. Knowledge of Torah. The spirit of Torah knew this. Why? Rebbe HaKadosh knew this kid, what is he looking for? He's going after all of the lusts of the world. Why? He wants people to follow him. He wants attention. He wants people to listen to him. He wants people to do what he says. He wants respect. Rebbe says, I can give him that. Just like that. But I need to make sure there's a reason to give him. Learn Torah. But how do I get him to learn Torah? I'll give him the respect. I'll give him the position. I'll give him all of the things that he wants on day one in order to get him away from all this Yetzirah, from all the sins. But in order for him to keep that position, he has to learn Torah. And I know that if he learns Torah, he will become a Torah scholar. Why? Because he's Bnei Aaron. He's the son of Aaron, meaning he's the son of Rabbi Elazar, who is the son of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. He has Yichus. He's connected to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. He's connected to Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Of course he's going to be okay if he learns Torah. It's in his spiritual genes that he will succeed in Torah if he simply applies himself and stays away from the sins. And this is in essence what HaKadosh Baruch Hu is telling us. Know this: if you follow the law and you constantly remind yourself that you are a descendant of Aaron, meaning if you're a Kohen, you're a descendant of Aaron. If you're not a Kohen, you're still a descendant of Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, and all of the greatest sages that ever lived. You are part of that. If you are a convert, you are the son of Avraham Avinu. If you're a natural born Jew, you are a descendant of Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov. You're the best. There's nothing greater than you in the world, so long as you recognize where you came from when you operate your life in this world. But if you don't, and you simply try to change the way, to change direction, then you're no different than the blasphemer who said that, I want to be part of the tribe of Dan. Yeah, but that's not the way it works here. You can't just decide you're the part of the tribe of Dan. The same as the black Hebrew Israelites just decided that they're Jews, suddenly. Hundreds of years, none of them even knew what Jews are. Today, they decided they're Jews. This is simply against the Torah. This is simply not part of the Torah. This is blasphemy. And blasphemy will eventually get a death penalty by God. Accept who you are with open arms, and you'll be able to see the blessings in your life. With that being said, you guys can start asking questions. I see there's plenty of them already on the screen. B'ezrat Hashem, I'll start answering. All right. Baruch Hashem for the shiur. Yeah, Baruch Hashem. Thank you very much for the support, the blessings, good mitzvot. Let's see, questions. Here we go. Do the disqualifying physical blemishes of the Kohanim also reflect spiritual blemishes you've been discussing in the Jewish Intimacy series? May Hashem continue to bless you and your family. Very good question. We answered it during the shiur, as you heard. The physical blemishes that a person has are an indication of a spiritual blemish that they either have or had in the past, part of their Tikkun. In fact, there are parts of the Shara Gilgulim and the Zohar and different teachings that discuss that people that have certain limitations, those limitations are specifically there because there is a problem there. So, for example, a person that is born without the ability to speak, they could be sure that that is connected to something that they did in their past life. Whether it's they said a lot of Lashon Hara, or they disclosed certain information they weren't allowed to disclose in a different format, or they were they said they used cuss words and spoke profanity, or they yelled at their parents, or they and disrespected them, or they they said slander, whatever it is. Certainly they sinned with their mouth, or they could even be they didn't eat kosher. So this is certainly connected to it. Of course, there's other things, but this is examples of it. In fact, the Gemara says that there are people that have kids like that, that are born without the ability to speak, it's not only because of the child's sins from their previous life, but also because of the animalistic act of the parents, of how they behave when they're intimate, in an unholy way. So, putting their mouth in certain places and saying certain things that are inappropriate. So, a person that's born with some type of speech impediment, it is certainly a indication that there is something to fix, that needs to be fixed as a result of this suffering. The same goes with somebody that has, is blind or has problems with their eyes. That is certainly connected to some type of problem that they have or sin that they've made in the past. They can either look at things that are not modest, lo tsanua, or they use their eyes to look at things that didn't belong to them and ended up coveting it and being jealous. It's also a sin. So all types of sins that a person makes with their eyes lead to these things. And again, it's part of their tikkun, where they suffer in this life as a result of not being able to see. But that is a way to fix and purify that part of the neshama and get that back, in so many words. The same actually goes with a person that's suffering in this world now, meaning Rabbi Chaim Volozhin writes that a person that has pain in certain parts of their body should know that HaShem is telling them they need to do a tikkun with that part of their body. In fact, there was a recent thing that happened literally within the last couple of days with Rabbi Ephraim. We have a lot of projects we're working on, but he took something on that is literally unbelievable. Unbelievable. And I'll tell you, this is one of these things that you have to be there to witness it, but you are. So this is what happened. His father, Rav Chaim Kachlon, over the last month or so, has had like unusual pain in his arm, huge amount of pain in his arm. He went to the hospital. They were concerned. What could be? What is this? What's that? And all the checking, all of the things that they were doing, nothing worked, and he's literally suffered with this pain in his arm that was really debilitating him. It was making life very, very difficult for him. And Rabbi Ephraim came up with the idea. He said, listen, we have a tradition that obviously it's a Hashem talking to us, and if we want to tikkun somewhere specific, we need to do something specific. So he says, there is a Masechet Yadayim. There's Masechet Yadayim. Write a commentary on it. Write a commentary. It's 20 chapters. It's not a big Masechet. Write a commentary on it. Now, Rav Chaim, he's a speaker for many years. He's a rabbi, but he doesn't, he wrote a book. But again, he's not someone that is as proficient in writing like his son, simply because he didn't spend his life doing that. He did other things. Baruch Hashem. So for him to do that, he's like, it's a big undertaking, and I'll do it. And he says, as soon as he said, I'll do it, right there and then, the pain in his arm started getting less. He realized, like literally, a noticeable difference in his arm pain, right there and then when he decided to do it. Then he started going over the Mishnah, and he literally, he was handwriting everything. Because he wasn't, again, there's not a big user of computers, came from a different generation, and he figured he'd write everything down. Even though his arm hurts a lot, his hand hurts an enormous amount, push himself. And he literally said, with every single Mishnah that he wrote a chidush, a commentary on, of course, reading all the different books and studying it, with every single one that he wrote, the pain started becoming more and more manageable. And he toiled over it over a short period of time. By the time he finished, the pain has gone down by like 70%, but it was still there. But it went down drastically. So now, he says, okay, so I wrote it. Now what? I still have the pain. So Rabbi Ephraim says, okay, we have to publish it. We have to publish it. We have to make a new kuntres, a new book. Okay, so we have to type it. So I guess that's what I have to do. In order for this pain to go away, Hashem wants me to actually type this. Even though he doesn't type often, he doesn't deal with this stuff, I'm going to do more than I typically do for the sake and the honor of Hashem with something specific to the hand. Masechet Yadayim talks about the purity of the hands, Natilat Yadayim, all of the different things that have to do with hands. I'm going to type it myself. And he spent like 3-4 days typing non-stop all the stuff that he wrote. He says by the time he finished, the pain in his hand, gone. Like disappeared as if it was never there. Unbelievable. So we see that there are times that people that have made sins in their previous life get specific specific defects during their life here as part of their tikkun. We see the second way where there are people that make a sin during their life and Hashem gives them a defect, a pain, an agony as a way to fix the problem, as a way to remind them that there is a problem. But then there is also another way. We see that there are certain people that Hashem simply gives them a certain pain, a certain agony, not as a form of punishment for the previous incarnation or even what they did in this way, but rather to encourage them to do more relevant to that body part, relevant to that issue. He wants the person to do more, connect that issue to Torah, because they have the ability to do it that nobody else has. They have certain insights, they have certain skills, certain siyata dishmaya that Hashem gave them to do it. And you see that when they do it, it works in such extraordinary ways, might as well be Mount Sinai. So this is literally a real story that happened completed. I only know the end of the story, that it ended in the last couple of days. That's when he finished typing it. The agony and the pain I knew about already for the last month. I didn't know it was as bad as what it actually was. Him writing the comment there, I only found out after he finished it. And it's unbelievable when you see this, not once, not twice, but time and time again. When you're involved with tzaddikim and different people, you see these amazing things. A similar story happened to Rabbi Ephraim, actually, in the last year, where one day he woke up with simply his arm stopped working, stopped working, wasn't able to move it. Wasn't able to move his arm. He read up, tried to figure out what, when, and he started studying the issue of the hand. And again, within a matter of a couple of days after he learned specific things and he wrote some things about it, arm went back to normal, Baruch Hashem. But literally, he was holding up his hand, no way, no ability to use it, no way to hold anything, close his hand. How? Why? Hashem decided. And this is, again, these are stories, these are like behind the scenes stories that if you didn't ask and it didn't happen, I wouldn't even tell you. But it's just one of those things where you see that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he's not just like black and white where he does this, you do that. No, there's different ways, there's different reasons. The Gemara Masechet Brachot says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu brings suffering to a person for multiple reasons. And the Gemara mentions 7 different reasons. Either because of sins, either to elevate the person is another reason, but the last reason is unknown to us. Meaning, it's the wisdom of God why he brings the suffering to a certain person. We know that he brings suffering sometimes because of a sin from the past, a sin from the present, to elevate a person. We understand all those things. But there is one place where even Moshe Rabbeinu asks Hashem, let me see you. Hashem says, no, you can only see my back. Meaning, there are certain things that a human being simply will not have the ability to see until they're completed. And that's what Hashem was telling Moshe Rabbeinu. You want to know why I do what I do. As a human being, so long as you're a human being, you're only going to know why I do what I do after you've seen the complete picture. After you've seen the complete picture. That's what it means that he saw, you can see me from my back. Not that Hashem has a back. So we see that there are times where Hashem simply gives a person a certain test. It can be physical, monetary, spiritual test, all types of tests. Not always necessarily as a punishment. Sometimes it is quite different, like what we just explained. Hazakubo for the question. Next question. Why are the Leviim not allowed to marry Kohanim, since they also have the status serving in the temple? I'm not really following. The Kohen is allowed to marry a Levi, but it's a woman. I don't understand. Men? I'm not following the question. Sorry. Is it allowed to watch something for free on a website that illegally streams content that you would have to pay to watch on another video streaming service? It's a good question. The halacha is, when it comes to stolen software, stolen merchandise that's a digital merchandise, where in essence this particular product is not costing the company any more money. For example, if somebody makes a software that's sold for, let's say, a few $100s, and he makes copies of it, and then he gives it to a bunch of different people. Now he is considered, the original guy is considered a thief. He's considered a thief. He's going to have to be reincarnated in order to return money to the entity that he stole from. It's a very, very big problem. But what about the other people that get this free software? Either they get it for free, or they even pay a small amount of money for it. Instead of paying $500 for it, they pay $5 for it. Are they considered thieves? Now, according to halacha, they're not considered thieves, but you still should not do it. And the reason why is because when you take advantage of what somebody that stole does, you're in essence empowering them, and you're giving them the ability and the drive to do it again. But it's not considered actual theft. It's just simply something that should not be done. Immoral, you can call it, or the like. Now, as far as whether a person is allowed to watch something streaming that could be sold somewhere else, again, like I just said, technically allowed. But should you do it? The answer is no. And because again, by doing that, you're supporting something wrongdoing. And the second thing is that whatever blessing you wanted to get from that is not going to happen. Why? Because you got to whatever that is in the wrong way, in an ugly way. So this is again one of the things that I taught one of my students years ago. We had, Baruch Hashem, a test that this is years ago when we first started the organization, and we needed to get some software. And in the beginning we barely had 2 nickels to rub together. So it was very, very difficult in the beginning. The tzedakah was very, very minimal. I wasn't collecting any money for lectures since the beginning, so it's not like there was any other way to get this stuff. So to go and somebody tells me, listen, we need to buy this $500 software for 3-4 people, so you have to spend a couple of $1,000s. Now, interestingly enough, software today, literally, you could practically buy you could get almost everything for free. Some criminal has hijacked everything somewhere. So whether it's Microsoft or it's whatever, everything can be gotten for free in some type of stolen version. So he told me, listen, we can get, instead of spending $2,000 on this software, we can get it for $10. There's this website that sells a cheat code or some other thing, and we can get it for $10. Or actually, there was somebody else that was in the business and said, listen, you don't even need to pay for it. I have free copies. Meaning he has stolen copies that he got from somewhere. And he said, listen, I give it to you. It's free. And so they came to me before we installed anything. They came to me and told me this. I told them, no, I'd rather not have it. Like, yeah, but we need the software. So we're going to buy it? I said, no, we're not going to buy it right now. It's expensive. We don't have the money for it right now, but I'm not gonna get anything. I'm not gonna benefit from anything stolen. No, but listen, I wasn't the one that stole it. It's somebody else. I don't even know who this person is. Anyway, other people are taking it. Anyway, the company, is not going after anything. And that's also, by the way, part of the reason of why it's not considered stealing by the end user. So, for example, somebody stole the original software and copied it. He's considered a thief. But all of the other people that get the software or whatever the product is, they're not considered thieves because the companies, let's say Microsoft or Apple or whoever it is, they are not going to spend their resources going after each individual thief. They may go after the people that made these things from time to time to make an example of them, but the individual end users, they're not going to go after them. So in essence, they already take it into account that people are going to steal. And they give up on it. They in essence, they factor it in. This is similar to other programs that people sometimes take advantage of, which again, it's always unethical to do these things, but nonetheless, is it stealing or not stealing? It's not stealing. So because they gave up on it. They're not going to go after it. So in essence, it became FK. It became like public property. So the only thing that's problem with it is the unethical part and supporting unethical and crime in so many words. But anyway, when it came to us, I said, listen, for me to go and take this, even though it's free, even though it's certainly convenient for me to do it, because I need this software to do Kiruv, to help people learn Torah, to help people get closer to HaShem. Maybe this is, you could easily justify this being a blessing even. I said, no, I'm not going to take advantage of somebody's stealing, somebody's wrongdoing. I'd rather not have it. And that was decided. Literally, it wasn't even a day. It wasn't even a day later that somehow came across my desk that there's this company that caters to non-profit organizations and gives them discounts on specific products. So I logged into this system. We're a non-profit. I logged into this system and I see, whoa, look, they have software too. And I find out they have the same exact software for $10. For $10. Not $500, not $1,500, $10. Literally, it was like a Kadosh Baruch who spoke to me face to face. I told my guy, look at this. Look at this. Look how Kadosh Baruch Hu literally transforms the whole world once you pass the test. 24 hours ago, I had all the reasons in the world to take advantage of something. I could even justify it halachically if I want to manipulate the Torah enough. But you stick with the truth, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will always reward you for it in the end. Sometimes it's right away, sometimes over time, but you're never going to be left with debt in your hand. You're always going to get paid, even more so than you could imagine. And this is one of the most beautiful things that you could literally learn these things from real life if you simply stick to the Torah through thick and thin. Through thick and thin. So that's the final message is stay away from anything that is a part of a lie. Question, Rabbi, could a person essentially use Scrabble to invoke what Hashem wants him to do, just like when the Lubavitchers use the Igros Kodesh to ask the Rebbe for answers? Aren't they both divine providence? Is this a serious question, or are you being an idiot? What do you mean, use Scrabble? What are you talking about? Hashem wanted you to pick those Scrabble letters, just like putting... Is this a serious question? I mean, come on. You're a smart guy. Why are you asking these questions? It's a mockery. It's a mockery of a Torah to say that you could figure that Hashem is talking to you through Scrabble. It's a mockery of the Torah. I mean, it's just... There's a limit to everything. This is beyond it. It's beyond it. You're going to go pick Scrabble letters, and that's what's going to tell you. Come on. What is Urim and Tumim? Come on. Enough. There's what the Lubavitchers do and with the letters to the Rebbe and all that stuff. That's, again, some agree with it, some disagree with it, some compare it to the the Gaon Vilna, how he has the special thing of how you open the Sefer Torah. I don't know how they going from opening the Sefer Torah and picking a specific verse after fasting and doing certain things to sanctify yourself for an entire day. How that somehow has transformed into writing a letter and putting it and sending it in the mail to an anonymous mailbox. I'm not sure how they took this from this and what source they're relying on. But again, just because one person is making a mistake doesn't mean that we just build on these mistakes and make a mockery of the Torah, especially not in the public format. Like, take Scrabble and make it into a this is Hashem talking to me. Come on, where there's just so much that no, Scrabble is not going to do anything for you. In fact, Scrabble is problematic if you use it on Shabbat. If you have the Scrabble Deluxe. Scrabble Deluxe is forbidden on Shabbat. Rabbi Moshe Feinstein Psak says that Scrabble Deluxe is forbidden on Shabbat because of the way that there's a separation between the letters on the board. Regular Scrabble is allowed on Shabbat, but is not a good thing to do because it's not the same thing with Monopoly. Allowed to do on Shabbat, but it's as far as it's not a malacha, but it should not be done because it's not something that you're supposed to do. On Shabbat, you're supposed to learn Torah, you're supposed to do mitzvot, you're supposed to pray, rest, celebrate Shabbat, not play video games and card games. But if you see somebody playing Monopoly or Scrabble on Shabbat, as long as they're not using the one that's forbidden, there is no melacha over there actually being done. No melacha. But if you see the deluxe is violation of Shabbat. So that's a psak by Rabbi Moshe Feinstein. But I can tell you one thing, that my kids, God bless them, they have this game that somebody gave them, and it's similar to Monopoly. I think it's called like Mitzvah Market or something like that. And it's like a Monopoly, but it's not Monopoly like what we grew up with as kids, with buying all types of streets and theaters and all types of things that we don't want in our Jewish home. It's everything is like connected to some type of mitzvah. It's Purim, it's matzah, it's all types of interesting things. But they said, listen, it still has money, fake money. And they wanted to play this on Shabbat. Now again, we don't want this on Shabbat. But my tzadikah wife came up with an idea. You guys want to play this on Shabbat? Fine. What's the condition? The condition is this. Instead of money, it's Torah questions. Torah questions. Every time you land on whatever, such a place, the other person asks them a Torah question. If they know the answer, they pass or they get the property. If they don't know the answer, they either get another chance or they get a different question or whatever, depending on the stringency of the person. But nonetheless, it's removing the money from the game and exchanging it with Torah questions and making it a beautiful thing to do. So these are certainly things that a person can do and actually use the Torah as another way to enjoy the holidays, enjoy Shabbat and so on, without necessarily feeling like they're missing out on some games and things that they like. But again, by no means does this give us any permission to just make a mockery of certain things. It's just some of this stuff drives me crazy because there's so much Chilul Hashem in the world today that people think it's like it's perfectly fine to do things that are forbidden. In fact, one of the things that's in this week's parasha, Hashem says, "Don't desecrate my name." And people think, desecrating Hashem's name, that's if you go and hug the terrorist, that's desecrating God's name. Or if you make a sin in public, that's desecrating God's name. Well, it's not necessarily that hard to desecrate God's name. Why? A person could simply walk around and without a kippah, and that could lead to desecration of his name. How? Simple. He decides that he's going to play a sport. He wants to play a sport, and every time he plays a sport, the kippah falls out. So what do? He takes the kippah, puts it in his pocket. Puts it in his pocket. Now, his kid who looks up to him, or his nephew, or his cousin, or his, I don't know, somebody else's kid, comes, looks at him, says, oh, wow, you don't have a kippah. Oh, no, it's in my pocket. It's just because we're playing sports. Ah, okay, whatever. So you don't really have to wear a kippah. Meaning, the calculation that the kid made is that if you don't have to wear it when you're playing sports, that means you don't really have to wear it. Guess what? You have a Chilul Hashem in your account. Gemara, Masechet Yoma, last chapter, says that certain sins a person can fix by doing tshuva at that time. Certain sins he has to wait until Yom Kippur for Hashem to forgive him. Certain sins he has to do tshuva, Yom Kippur, and accept on himself certain sufferings. But there is one sin that even the suffering, Yom Kippur, and tshuva, it's still not going to fix it until he dies. Which one? Chilul Hashem. Chilul Hashem is literally one of the easiest sins in the world to make if a person is not careful and doesn't have Yirat Shamayim. If a person is not careful, does not have Yirat Shamayim, they could literally be a walking Chilul Hashem. So a person has to be very, very careful from desecrating God's name with everything that they do, especially with things that are just have turned the Torah into some form of mockery, either because people are acting the wrong way, or people are just stupid, or just ridiculous behavior. These things, you have to stay away from it like you stay away from cancer. Stay away from like you stay away from a plague. Stay away from these things, because Chilul Hashem is not easy. It's not something that you could fix with a couple of dollars and I'm sorry. It's just simply not. It's a very, very dear sin that a lot of people don't realize how dear the sin is. Next question. The Sephardic Jew, why background of the Rab of Kalist can be Kohanim too? I'm sorry, I don't understand. Background of a Rab of Kalist can be Kohanim too? I just don't understand. I'm sorry, I don't understand the question. Question, honoring the wicked can make you lose your olam haba unless you repent. Can you give me a few examples of honoring the wicked, please? Sure, the Rabbeinu Tam says that there are certain people that will never see Pnei Shechina, they will never see the face of God, if you will. When we live in this world, we're never going to be able to see God, but when a person leaves this world and they're righteous, they can see God. So whatever that means. Now, certain people that will never see. One of them is Kat Shakranim. Rabbeinu Tam says in Sharei Tshuva, people that are liars will never see God. Will never see Him. The other one is Kat Chanfanim. Kat Chanfanim are people that are kiss-ups, that kiss up to the wicked. What's kissing up to the wicked? When, for example, the community or even the rabbi of the community, pretend that somebody that is righteous because they're a big donor, even though they know that they desecrate Shabbat, even though they know that in their business they're stealing, but they still say, oh, here's the tzaddik to come into the kehillah. You know how important this person is. He's a big tzaddik. Now everybody knows he desecrates Shabbat, he's married to a goya, he steals in his business, but because he gives a few shekels to the synagogue or to the yeshiva, people call him a tzaddik. That's chanfanut. That's kissing up to the wicked. That's forbidden completely. That's one common example that has to do with money. And there's always a story that I love with the Rebbe Mitzanz, the Klosenberger Rebbe, when there was a very wealthy man came, was brought to him by some of his Hasidim, and the Rebbe Mitzanz built an empire, built hospitals, schools, literally buildings left and right, entire cities. Netanya in America, in Germany. So, Baruch Hashem, he built a lot, and he always needed a lot of money to continue doing the building. And one time, a very, very wealthy Jew is brought to him, and there's a lot of people, and he's sitting down with the Rebbe, and this guy is older, he's in his 70s, and the Rebbe Mitzanz asked him, so how is your business? How is it doing? Is it doing okay? And he's like, oh, the Rebbe doesn't need to worry. These days already, I don't even need to spend much time in my businesses. Most of the, they already run themselves. Most of the time, I just spend some time, playing cards and enjoying myself. Now, this is a guy that could literally write a check to pay for all of the buildings, not just one building. And he came with a checkbook to write a check. He just wants to talk to the Rebbe for a little bit. The Rebbe Mitzan says to him, "Ata lo mitbayesh? Aren't you ashamed of yourself that you're already in your 70s? And instead of learning Torah, what you're doing is you're gambling? And what? You think that you're going to get rewarded because you give some tzedakah to some organizations? You are going to get punished and you're going to burn in Gehenna." And he's telling them this in front of everybody. You're going to burn in Gehenna for the tzedakah that you gave because it came from a non-kosher place. And because of your non-kosher money, those yeshivot that you gave to them are having students that are not learning Torah because they don't understand. No one knows why they don't understand. Now we know why they don't understand. Because of non-kosher money. Now this guy is shocked. Nobody in the world ever spoke to him like this. He gets up and he leaves. Now, the Hasidim, they try to cool things off. The guy obviously is not having it. He leaves, he's gone. The millions are gone with him. They come to the Rebbe and say, "Rebbe, why'd you do that?" Obviously in a much more respectable way. The Rebbe Mitzan says to them, "Listen, I'm not going to delude myself to think that just because of what I said to him, he's going to stop gambling and do complete tshuva. But my goal was that at least he's not going to enjoy the sin as much as he's enjoying it now, so he'll suffer less for it." Meaning, my goal is not to collect money from him. My goal is to help him. I thought I was going to be able to help him by taking his money for tzedakah. But since I saw that his tzedakah is not kosher, and everything he does is not kosher, I needed to help him in a much bigger way, which is to help him stop enjoying the sins. This is actually one of the extraordinary stories in the bio of the Klosenberger Rebbe. And it's literally a story after a story of somebody that was, you could just say that he was more malach than man. He was more an angel than a man. And it's one of those things where a person, he sees that these tzaddikim were literally, they were in our lifetime. These are not from 500 or 1,000 or 1,500 years ago. They were in our lifetime. They were walking among us. And a person can be related to this. A person can be part of this, a part of this community. A person can be learning from their books. But instead, unfortunately, they lie to themselves thinking that some self-help guru that's 25 years old is going to be more useful to them and better for them. So a person needs to make sure to always connect to the truth. And the truth is not necessarily always what's most popular. In fact, the truth is usually unpopular. But if a person sticks to the truth, HaShem is going to make sure that they're constantly going to go to the right path, and he's going to connect them to good people. If a person is, iffy with the truth and he wants to literally lie to himself, then that person is not only going to be much more likely to kiss up to the wrong people and honor wicked people, but become a wicked person themselves. Become a wicked person themselves. And this you see, unfortunately, many times in communities, that even at the times of Rabbi Chaim Volozhin, he writes it himself. He says that there are many yeshivot and synagogues that are being built by the same people that built Binyan Bavel, the Tower of Babel. Na'aseh lanu shem, he says, to make a name for themselves. Where they're building buildings, so-called Torah institutions, not for the sake of Torah, but rather for the sake of their name. And none of these places will succeed. In the long run, there's not going to be any Torah coming from there. They may have a place, they may have some students, they may have some money, but Torah is not coming from there. Not going to come from there. So this is at the time of Rabbi Chaim Volozhin. He writes about rabbis in his generation. He writes about the community in his generation of people buying and building buildings and yeshivot and synagogues and so on, but not doing it for the sake of God. Doing it for the sake of building a name. Now, why do they succeed? How do they succeed? They succeed by kissing up to the wicked, by honoring the wicked people, telling the wicked people that if they give money, they become righteous. They continue sinning, they continue stealing, continue killing, continue lying, but if they give some money, then you're a tzaddik. And unfortunately, this happens time and time again. There's some wicked guy that built literally, he has gotten so much money out of the Jewish people here in South Florida that he has extra land. He has extra land. He recently bought a huge plot of land. He's building a bunch of buildings on it, all types of so-called yeshiva and school and dormitory and all types of mumbo jumbo. But this is not his first plot of land. No. He has across the street a $10 million plot of land. He won't even allow another rabbi to have his community there for 5 seconds. Why? Your competition. What competition? You have a $30 million project over here across the street. What competition? A little office, a little place to pray? No, if you want, be part of my community. But I don't want to be a part of your community. You don't even have a minyan. Now, how do I know this guy is wicked? He's been in the same place for over 30 years. Until this day, he does not even have 10 people that keep Shabbat in his community. 30 years he's collecting tens of millions of dollars. He does not even have 10 people in his community that keep Shabbat. People in his community outright marry non-Jews, outright violate Shabbat, drive to shul. He doesn't care. Doesn't care at all. Why? As long as the money comes in, everything is good. Now his bank account, huge, millions, tens of millions. Is Olam Haba, also tens of millions of years in Gehenom. How does he get all this money? Telling the wicked people that they're perfectly fine. I spoke to him. I spoke to some of his members. I'm not making this stuff up. Literally, I spoke to a guy that he tells me, listen, I've been giving the rabbi, my maaser for many years. Millions of dollars I give to the rabbi. I'm happy to give to the rabbi. He makes me feel religious, he tells me. So I asked the guy, you keep Shabbat? He goes, no, we don't really keep anything, but, we keep this. I said, I don't understand. Why do you donate to a Torah institution or so-called Torah institution if you don't keep anything? You don't keep kosher. Nothing. Why? He goes, the rabbi said I'll go to heaven. There's a heaven, there's a na'alayim, is a heaven. Gehenom, he's going to be in. You think he himself is not going to heaven. You think you're going to go to heaven. But unfortunately, Rabotai, almost every community has this. It's an infection from the idolatrous world that's full of this, where these pastors and priests sell their communities all types of lies, telling them that if they give them money to buy a plane, to buy another building, to buy a vacation, to buy all types of nonsense, they're going to go to heaven. There is no way to go to heaven unless you're a righteous person. And there's no way to be righteous unless you are living in accordance with the Torah. Simple. End. There is no other way to go to heaven. Now, if you give, you donate, all those things, those are extras. Those are bonuses. Those are good. But if you yourself are not observing the laws of the Torah, there is never going to be a heaven. Never. Like, it's not like, if I don't observe the Torah, but I give a lot of money, then maybe I'll go to Gehenom for a few years, but eventually I'm going to heaven and I'll see Moses and I'll see Avraham. No. If you don't observe the Torah, you're never going to heaven. Like, never. Let's count. 1 year, no. 2 years, no. 3 years, no. 10 years, no. 20 years, no. 100 years, no. A million years, no. A billion years, no. Never, never is never. They will. No one that is that doesn't follow the Torah will ever see even the inside of what heaven looks like. Never. Why? Because the Torah doesn't need your money. Surely it's good if you donate for a good cause, but you're not going to heaven because of that. You're going to heaven because you're righteous, and that's just going to help you get to an even higher level, both in action as well as in spirituality. But for anyone to sell you the story that you're going to heaven just because of money that you give, it's an outright lie that is coming from idolatry of Christianity, where they tell you you don't have to observe any of the laws of the Torah anymore so long as you believe in Yoshke. How do you express your belief in Yoshke? Simple. Give money, plant seeds. Plant seeds to buy the pastor and the priest another plane, another mansion, another island, another this, another that. This Rabotai, is one of the biggest lies in humanity today. Why do you think the church is not only the richest entity in the world, but it's literally the Catholic Church, the Vatican specifically, it's its own country with its own rules. 1,000 people approximately. No one can touch them. They make their own rules. They have one store, and anyone that is permitted inside to see certain things without a unified permission, there are literally lists of people that were given this permission and shortly thereafter disappeared from the world. Either mysterious car accident, mysterious virus that killed them, mysterious walking around a neighborhood and a piano falls on them, all types of mysterious things. And why doesn't anybody investigate these things? Because when you are a place that lies to people, telling them that they can go to heaven if they, as long as they give money and simply do nothing that the Torah says, contradict everything, that means that you connect yourself with all types of mafiosos, all types of criminals, all types of crime, and in so many words, you bought the system. In this world, in the next world, nobody can buy anything. No, all the money in the world is not even worth a quarter of a mitzvah, of the smallest mitzvah you can think of. And that's why it's literally a desecration of God's name in the highest level to tell people that you're going to go to heaven purely because of your tzedakah. It's simply a lie. If you don't follow the Torah, there is no heaven. No matter what you are, Jew, Gentile, doesn't make a difference. You don't follow the laws of Torah that are applicable to you, you're not going to heaven ever. So when people kiss up to the wicked, this creates a desecration of God's name. And that's why the Rambam writes, he paskins halacha in Ilchot Yesodei Torah, in chapter 5, the first halacha. And he says that Am Yisrael is commanded to sanctify Hashem's name and not to desecrate it. Now, the verses in our weekly parasha say that first, don't desecrate God's name. Later on, it says sanctify His name. So why did the Rambam change it around, where he first says we are commanded to sanctify His name, and then don't desecrate it? Because desecrating God's name is easy to do. If you don't follow the Torah, you could literally desecrate God's name every 5 seconds. Every 5 seconds. You make the Torah look bad, desecrated God's name. You made a public sin, you desecrated God's name. Literally, it's easy to make the greatest sin in the world. Now, a person that's unaware of how easy it is to lose your olam haba is certainly a person that has no olam haba. So the Rambam says, in order for you to not fall into this horrible place of desecrating God's name on a regular basis, you need protection. You need protection. How can someone have protection from desecrating God's name? Busy yourself with sanctifying His name. If you busy yourself with what the Gemara in Masechet Chagigah says, sanctify Hashem's name every day. If you didn't sanctify His name, there's no purpose for you to live. Why? Because you came to this world to sanctify His name, to make His name bigger. Not because He needs you, but for yourself. And the Rambam gives us a hint here. He says, busy yourself with sanctifying Hashem's name, not just for the sake of sanctifying His name, but also for the sake of not desecrating His name. Now, a person says, okay, sanctifying His name is hard. I can't always do a big lecture. I can't always, organize a big event where a lot of Jews come and do tshuva. Guess what? You don't need to do really big things to sanctify Hashem's name. It's good to do them. Arrange a big seminar. A lot of people do tshuva. Do a big mitzvah that, publicizes the Torah. There's certainly big ways to sanctify Hashem's name. But there's also easy ways to sanctify His name. How? Rabbi Elimelech Milizhinsk, the same tzaddik we talked about before, in his Sefer, he calls it a letter. It's called Tzetil Katan. Tzetil Katan is like a small letter. He writes, Rabbi Elimelech Milizhinsk was the Talmid of the Magid Mimezrich. The Magid Mimezrich was the main Talmid of the Baal Shem Tov, meaning the Rabbi Elimelech Milizhinsk is part of the foundation of Chassidut in the world. He writes, what do you do if you want to go to sleep, but you can't fall asleep? Now, the fools of the world will tell you, count sheep. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, what did you get out of it? You counted sheep? Great. Do something useful. Why? But I gotta go to sleep. So what do people do? They start thinking, tomorrow I have to open an account at the bank, and tomorrow I have to wash my clothes, and tomorrow I have a meeting at 12 o'clock, and tomorrow I have to pay the mortgage, and they think about it. What ends up happening is they think about all the things they need to do tomorrow. They can't fall asleep for another 2 hours. Rabbi Elimelech Milizhinsk, he says something beautiful. He says you went to sleep, but you can't fall asleep. What do? Sanctify HaKadosh Baruch Hu's name. How? How can I sanctify HaKadosh Baruch Hu's name when I'm about to go to sleep? What? Get up, go learn again? No! Without getting out of the bed. You're in bed, tired, but you're not ready to go to sleep yet. Rabbi Elimelech says, think right there and then. Imagine in your mind, close your eyes, imagine in your mind that there's a bunch of idol worshippers that are telling you, worship our idol or we're going to burn you alive. And you say, burn me alive, I'm never going to worship your idol. I am a Jew. And imagine yourself dying on Kiddush Hashem. He says, that is fulfilling the mitzvah of Kiddush Hashem. Right there. Before you went to sleep, you made the biggest mitzvah in the Torah. Why do you think Rabbi Elimelech Milizhinsk was Gadol Ador and got to the highest levels? Why? Why do you think all of the Gdolim got to where they were? Why? Because they had a good memory? No. Because they knew where they came from, and thereby they knew what their abilities and their responsibilities were. And they made sure to take advantage of every minute of their life to sanctify HaKadosh Baruch Hu's name. Even the moments before they went to sleep, they thought, how can I sanctify Hashem's name? Now, think about dying on Kiddush Hashem. The average person, you tell him, look, Rabbi Akiva died on Kiddush Hashem. They cut him up to pieces. Thinks, wow, horrible. One of the 10 martyrs in the Torah, some of them they threw into the fire, Rabbi Hanina. The other one, they cut him up. The other one, all types of horrible things. It's like, why do I want to think about that? Don't think about them. Think about you, it happening to you, and you having that strong belief in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that you're never leaving Him. You're never going to fall to idol worship. You're never going to do any of the cardinal sins. You're never going to go anywhere that's far from Hashem. And you're willing to die for Hashem. That is Kiddush Hashem. Right before you go to sleep. Rabbi Meir teaches us real chassidut. What makes a chassid a chassid? When he does above and beyond what he's expected to do, what he's supposed to do. He's supposed to just go to sleep, wake up in the morning, early, start praying. Yes, you're supposed to. But maybe I can sanctify Hashem's name, do Kiddush Hashem before I go to sleep. Sure. Think about that. So when a person stays away from wicked people, that in itself is going to put him on the right path. And he can eventually do these great things that Rabbi Meir taught, and the great Hasidim taught, and the great sages taught. When a person follows materialism, follows lust, and all types of instincts, all types of desires, not instincts, desires, that person is going to eventually become one of the people that kisses up to the wicked and ends up exactly where the wicked end up. There's only two possible outcomes. Choose wisely. How do you recommend planning for tomorrow while still having bitachon and the right amount of ishtadlut? Where is the line of laziness for a person? Laziness should not be even part of a person's vocabulary. A person should make sure that he is exerting maximum effort at every single moment that he's alive. What does that mean? That means that if you are awake, you are either learning Torah, praying to Hashem, or working in order to make a living to provide for your family. Or being with your family, teaching them, talking to them, being with them, loving them. There's a few responsibilities that a person has, but as long as he's alive, as long as he's awake, he has to exert as much energy as possible to do the best that he can in whatever he does. That's why I always tell people, don't take a job just because of money, because if they give you a lot of money, but they take away your life, you don't have any time to learn Torah, you don't have any time to pray, it's not worth it. On the other hand, don't take a job that doesn't pay you enough money, where even though you work more than the average person even, you're still going to be struggling, which means that even when you try to learn Torah, you're not going to be into it because you're constantly thinking, I don't have enough money. So whatever you do, do the best you possibly can with the least amount of time. But that doesn't mean don't work. It means make the most amount of money that you can at whatever you do for a living. When you need to work, the least amount of work, most amount of money. And with the rest of the time, exert as much energy as possible serving Hashem. Serving Hashem means learn Torah, help other people do tshuva, do all types of chesed and kindness, publicize the Torah. There is endless amount of things that a person can involve themselves with. And the more they exert themselves, the more they know that it's not a matter of my job providing for me or my good deeds providing for me. The bottom line is I'm doing the best that I can to serve Hashem and to function in the ways of the Torah in this world. And Hashem is going to provide me. Whether He's going to provide me from this business or this partnership or this mystery or that, doesn't make a difference. Bottom is I'm going to do the best that I can to use the Torah as my map for this world. My map for this world. Now, as far as preparation, it all depends on what a person is aspiring to have. What do they want in life? If they're looking to build a Torah institutions and big things, then certainly they need to prepare a certain way. If they're looking to simply live their life, have their house, have their kids, and have a decent normal life, then they have to prepare in different ways. If they But if they start preparing in the way of, let's say, for example, how the television newscasters tell you, where you have to have money for retirement, and you have to have a certain amount of insurance, and you have to have a certain amount of money saved, and a certain amount of money in cash, and a certain amount of money in risk, and a certain amount, then in reality, you're never going to have enough money to give tzedakah, you're never going to have enough money to live, you're never going to have enough money, and all the money that you're going to have is going to be saved or invested in so many different places that you're going to be afraid to buy chocolate milk just because it may be 20 cents more than the regular milk. So a person needs to know, we buy what we need. We buy what we need. Not we don't always necessarily buy what we want, but we buy what we need. Never be stingy on mitzvot. Never be stingy on the things you need. The point of money is to use it for the things you need. Now, if a person worries too much about the future, they end up saving everything and not living, and eventually all of the money and all the work that they do ends up being given to somebody else, some stranger, some enemy, some problem. So, or sometimes they simply lose the blessing because they're not using their money for mitzvot, so HaShem simply takes it away. So a person needs to be clever with whatever it is that they do for a living to make sure that they exert the most amount of effort in order to produce the best results with the least amount of time possible. Sometimes the least amount of time possible is a full day, 8, 9, 10 hours. Sometimes the least amount of possible is 3 hours. Sometimes it's 12 hours. But the point is that whatever it is, to be the most successful you can. Then, with the rest of their time, to make sure that they're learning Torah, they're doing the mitzvot, they're doing chesed, they're obviously paying attention to their family, and not just growing by themselves. So you can't really give like a one-size-fits-all plan, more precise than what I just gave. Anything else requires more details on the person itself and the business itself, on the aspirations of the person itself. Does this person need to move somewhere? Does this person need to make any major purchases? Does this person is in a risky career, problematic career? Are they married? Are they single? Are they with young kids? Are they with all older kids? Different people, different circumstances. You can't really give more specifics without knowing all those other details, but whatever I can, I just gave you now. Hi dear Rabbi, you recently started to explain Rambam's view on demons in response to people saying he doesn't believe in them. Can you please explain his view on this topic? Yes, the Rambam, like any of the other sages, believe in demons 100%. There's verses in the Torah that talk about demons. There's plenty of places in the Gemara and other parts of the oral Torah that talk about demons, how Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai spoke and saw different demons and used them to help convince the Roman emperor to cancel a decree. The Shlomo HaMelech was a king of all creatures, including the demons, but the king of the demons was able to take revenge against Shlomo HaMelech and kicked him out of his castle across the world. And it took Shlomo HaMelech 7 years to come back to his kingdom. Some say he never came back and he died that way. But either way, what happened to the king? This demon became the king. He actually became Shlomo HaMelech. He turned himself to look like Shlomo HaMelech for a period of time. And only after his mother, Bathsheba, identified that he's really not Shlomo HaMelech did they realize that there's a problem. They realized there's a problem because he came on to her and he wanted to marry her even though he's her son. So she realized there's something wrong here. And then what they did is they put I believe it was either flour or salt on the floor, and without him knowing. And then as soon as he walked out of the room, they went into the room and they saw the footsteps, and they saw that the footsteps were like a chicken leg with 3 fingers, and they knew it was a demon. And then the guards said that there was somebody at the gate. Somebody at the gate that's already been there for a very long time saying he's Shlomo HaMelech, but we didn't believe him. And they brought him, and that was Shlomo HaMelech. So The point is that demons are part of the Torah. It's not a matter of believing or not believing. If a person believes in the Torah, demons are part of the Torah. They're part of the written Torah. They're certainly part of the oral Torah. There are people that have seen them, witnessed them today. I mean, so people that I know, people that I help. So there's no question of the Rambam believing or not believing in demons. It's simply people don't know how to read and don't know how to understand the words of the sages that interpret things that he said. What the Rambam actually said is that he did not believe that there's any more a specific type of demon in the land of Israel. Not demons in general, but specific type of demon in Israel. Because the decree on those is only in the exile. That's it. He wasn't talking about mazikim. He wasn't talking about dibukim. There are different types of demons. There's ones that are completely spiritual. The Gemara says there's one that's half man, half spirit. There's one that's completely man, meaning they eat, they procreate, they have kids, they look like humans. There's different types. There's mazikim. So the point is that this is a very, very fundamental part of our Torah that it's simply silly to even think that the Rambam would just say, I don't believe in all of it, because that would literally, it's in the written Torah. It's being a kofar in one of the verses in the Torah, or more than one verse in the Torah. So what the Rambam was simply saying is that there was a specific type of demons that are not in Israel, not in the world, in Israel, in the land of Israel. That's it. Rest of the world certainly has it. Rest of the world certainly has it. But Israel has others too. So that's the thing. If people that don't know how to learn, they look for all types of things that will cause a stir. And in reality, all they show is how stupid they are when it comes to Torah. They could be brilliant when it comes to their profession, architecture, or mathematics, or science. But when it comes to Torah, they're so ignorant, it's embarrassing. But unfortunately, the more ignorant, usually the more public they are with their opinion. Like these fools that are doing a show now on Daily Wire talking about God. Literally, I don't even know if they know how to spell God, but they're talking about God and what they believe. It says in the Torah, and just dumb things. And there's plenty of dumb people out there, and it's not just ignorance. It's literally foolishness. That I don't know how to put it, but they're just digging themselves a bigger and bigger hole, because since they're public personalities, or they're making their opinions public, they do fool other ignorant people and cause them to sin, cause them to distance themselves away from the Torah, cause them to question the Torah, because usually the Satan is very successful with confusing people that are uneducated. So yeah, that's that. If we're saying a bracha, but we mispronounce a word. For example, I say menuzot instead of mezonot. Do I say the whole bracha again, or correct the misspoken word? If you've already if it's before that you said the name of God, then you can restart. In the rare occasion that you can't make a blessing before the name of God. If it's after you said the name of God, then you certainly don't make the blessing all over again. That would be taking Hashem's name, saying Hashem's name in vain. But if you haven't completed the sentence yet, then you could correct yourself and complete. If you've already completed it, you completed the blessing, but you remembered within 2 seconds that you made a specific mistake with a specific word, you can correct those words. But again, without saying the name of God. But it's only within 2 seconds. If already, 30 seconds or a minute already passed, then don't worry about it. It's fine. Hashem understands even our mistakes. Is it okay to pray to Hashem about time limit? For example, converting at such and such age. No, you don't give Hashem conditions. Is a woman who wears a long wig going to burn in Gehenna even if they were misled and think they're doing a mitzvah? The Baba Sali Alav Shalom says that women that wear wigs will burn in Gehenna by the fuel for Gehenna will be from their wigs. So there are certainly some great Chachamim, Mekubalim, that say yes, they will burn in Gehenna with their wigs. Not everybody agrees with that. Some believe, like what you said, they're being misled. But again, there is just so much excuses that people have that they're going to be able to use. The misleading part is a little hard to use throughout your entire life, because if a person is about to buy a refrigerator or buy a car or buy a house or buy anything of value, typically they do real research. And if they would have done the same research on the wigs as they do on a refrigerator, on a microwave, on the type of notebooks they're going to buy for their kids, or even a new computer or a new phone, or needless to say a house, and they did the same research on wigs, they would clearly arrive at the conclusion that no one can mislead them. They could simply know that this is not kosher, either because of the poskim, the vast majority of poskim throughout all of the generations, both Sephardi and Ashkenazi, that forbid it, or simply because of the fact that all real hair wigs in the market today are a part of idolatry. Simply. I say all, not because there is no exceptions, but rather the exceptions are so minute, they're statistically inconsequential. So there's such a mind, they're not even 1%. So unless you have 3 women that are willing to shave their head right in front of you, and then give you that to make a wig, you simply are not going to have a wig that's coming from anything other than idolatry in India. And that's just simply a reality. And no one agrees that idolatry is allowed. Not to Ashkenazim, not to Sfaradim, not even to Goyim. So a woman that's going to look into the wig industry is going to be quick to find that it is impossible to find a real hair wig that's coming from any place other than India. Even if it has a tag that says Brazil or it says Mars, doesn't make a difference. They're all coming from India. And we have many videos explaining why and who and what and all that stuff. With pictures, with witnesses, with testimony, even from the idol worshippers themselves that work in those temples. So the point is that a woman that is wearing these wigs, if she did the research, then she knew the truth. If she didn't do the research, then obviously she's going to have an answer of why. Why did she do research on shoes for 3 hours, but she didn't do research on wigs for 3 hours when she wore the wig for 30, 40, 50, 60 years? Why? And the reality is that Hashem is bringing this big lie to the face of people on a regular basis. There's no woman out there that's wearing a wig that hasn't heard of the suspicion, at the very least, and accusations and supposable conspiracies, or whatever you want to call it, about wigs. No woman that's wearing a wig hasn't heard something about it. Not just for me. Rabbi Yashiv literally paskin, it's not allowed to have these wigs. People burned wigs in the streets, and only until these reshaim invented a new market and said that you could kosher the wig somehow, which is obviously impossible. People didn't have wigs. They stopped wearing wigs for a short period of time, but the Yetzirah was too big. So, point is that no one will have the ability to just simply say, I never knew, I never heard, and everybody fooled me. It's just no one can use that. It's the same thing you could do if you could do it with that, you could do it with everything else. With Shabbat, with morality, with idolatry, with anything else. Ignorance is not an excuse that anybody can use, not for the civil law and certainly not for the Torah law. If you drive really fast and police pulls you over and say, I didn't know that the speed limit is only 30 miles an hour. The police officer is not going to care. If you drove 100 miles per hour at 30, you're getting arrested. Yeah, but I didn't know. Ignorance is not an excuse. You can't use ignorance. Why? When you drive a car and you have a license, you are making a statement that you are responsible for your knowledge. And therefore, you not knowing is your fault. When you live in this world, you are responsible for your knowledge. You not knowing is your fault. It's not anybody else's fault. Yeah, but he misled me. Yeah, but how come you didn't let the other people mislead you? When it came to business, when it came to things that you spend more time on, why? You didn't let anybody fool you to thinking that your kids' drawings are really masterpieces that should be put into a museum, even though they look better than what is in a museum. You didn't let anybody fool you into that, right? But when it came to the Torah, he told you, listen, you're going to heaven no matter what. You let him fool you. Like, it doesn't add up. It doesn't add up. So nobody could use this excuse in their life. And certainly not to think for a second that's going to help them. Baruch Hashem, for this class, my name is Joshua. How to find out who I am and to fulfill my mission in the world. Very simple. There is a general mission and there's a specific mission. The general mission for all Jewish people is to follow the Torah and follow all of the mitzvot. The specific mission is to fix certain things that are specific to you, especially when it comes to character traits. So the things that are most difficult for a person, those are the ones that Hashem says, that's the ones that I want you to fix. Meaning, if a person is very, very lazy, that's exactly what Hashem wants you to fix. If a person is very lethargic, that's exactly what Hashem wants you to fix. If a person is very stingy, that's exactly what Hashem wants you to fix. All of the bad character traits need to be fixed, but which ones do I need to fix first? The ones that stand out the most. But then there's also other things. For example, somebody has a very big business that, let's say, he sells idols. And then he realizes, oh, listen, Judaism doesn't really accept it. Maybe I try to figure out to make it work, make it not work. So this is a big test for them. Why? Because you're not allowed to worship idols. You're not allowed to benefit from idols in any way. So you can't sell them or anything like that. So this guy's big test at that moment is to get rid of this business. It's to get rid of this business, which could mean a major financial loss. So for him, it's also that. And other people have other things. Every one of us has major things we need to work on. Obviously, a person knows what's their biggest test, and right now, work on that first. After you finish that test, I can assure you you'll have other tests. Once you get those other tests, work on them. After you complete that test, work on the next one. And life is one test after another. The more tests you complete, the more you are completing your mission. Can a wife wear a wig as long as she's inside our home? If the wife is wearing a wig that is 100% synthetic, then she can if she's home. The problem is, number one, with synthetic is that even synthetics sometimes have real hair in them that's coming from idolatry, 2 to 3% of it. Number two, it's not really the ideal situation to have two different images of yourself. If it's only during the time that she's together with her husband alone, yeah, that's not a problem. She doesn't need to wear a wig. She could just, show her hair. No need to wear a wig. But if it's, around the kids and all that stuff, then she's simply putting a stumbling block in front of herself because the kids are going to see it that way. Everybody's going to see it that way. She's going to get used to it. It's going to become more and more difficult for her to cover her hair with a mitpachat, with a scarf or a hat once she leaves the house. So it's not a good idea. Question about the source of the nature of the earth. There is a growing number of people claiming that the earth is flat or coming up with other theories, while most rabbis maintain that the earth is, as well as taught, is round. Are there any Torah sources that we can use to prove that it is or it isn't round, or other specific form that you know of? Sure, the Gemara in Masechet Avodah Zarah talks about different statues that are forbidden. and one of the things that it's forbidden to have the statues of a eagle, of a bull, of a lion, and also of a complete human being. And some say no, it's even if it's not complete, but he's holding a ball. Why this holding the ball thing? It says because the idol worshippers of the past would have idols where there's a person holding a ball as if their idol is holding the world. Holding the world. So from there, the Chachamim say, so we see that, he's holding the world, and the world is a ball, the world is round, it's a sphere. So that's one place that I could remember off the top of my head, in Gemara Masechet Avodah Zarah. Then you have also the Zohar HaKadosh, where Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai talks about how HaShem created the world, where, I believe this is also in the Rambam, but the Zohar preceded the Rambam. And he writes of how the world is created in such a fashion where the people on top of the world are have light, while the people on the bottom of the world have darkness. At parts of the day they change. While the one guy is standing at one side, the other one is standing exactly the opposite, meaning it's feet to feet. And in so many words, he describes how the world is a sphere, and on and on. Now, would I spend time researching this further and just to prove them? No, for two reasons. Number one, usually people that are prone to believing conspiracy theories are unchangeable. They're worse than fanatics. They are people that have brainwashed themselves, and they're simply not willing to change their belief, because part of their belief is connected to the amount of effort they put into this belief. Since they research it for so long, for you to tell them that it's wrong, it makes them believe that, then all of my work is for nothing. No, I'm not giving this up. And they're going to fight just for the sake of defending their lies. So to deal with those people that believe the world is flat, or that there's aliens and there's a new world order that's taking over the world, and all types of other mumbo jumbo things, it's a complete waste of time. That's number one. Number two, there's no nafkamina, meaning whether the world is round or the world is flat, it's irrelevant when it comes to following the Torah. You still have Shabbat, you still have family purity, you still have to eat kosher, you still have to learn Torah. That's it, finished, the end. So it doesn't really make a difference. You want the world to be flat? Enjoy. You want the world to be round? Enjoy. It doesn't really make a difference. It simply does not make a difference. The people that spend a lot of time, talking about flat world and all that stuff, usually they are, losers in life. Usually they're very big losers in life, because they're exerting all of their powers into nonsense. Meaning that even if they're right, there's no benefit. This is one of the things we learn from the wife of On ben Pelet. When Korach went against Moshe Rabbeinu, he had people follow him, 250 big rabbis following him, and he also had certain leaders follow him. Now, you had Datan v'Aviram, which are Reshaim, joined Korach, going against Moshe Rabbeinu, and then you also had On ben Pelet. But On ben Pelet was saved by his wife in the last minute, where she told him, listen, why are you in this? If Moshe Rabbeinu is right, then God's going to punish you and Korach and everybody else. If Korach is right, nothing's going to change for you anyway. It's not like you're going to be the new leader or the new Kohen or new anything. Meaning, right now, we're living a happy life. We're in the desert. Hashem is sending us food from Shamayim. Everything is good. The kids are good. I'm good. Everything is good. You have a life. If Korach wins, nothing's going to change for you. You're not going to get any more money. You're not going to get any more money. You're not going to get any different position. You're not going to become Kohen Gadol. Nothing changes for you. So why are you even in this? What's the point? There's no. It's a purposeless fight for you. Korach wants to fight. He wants to be the leader. That's his problem. He at least has something to gain if he wins. But you have nothing to win. And that's the problem with people that are in the conspiracy world. They're so fanatic about their beliefs that the weather is changing and that the world is changing and this is changing and robots are going to take over the world and aliens already control the world and everything. There's all this nonsense that people... Like, even if you're right, nothing changes. You're not going to change the system. You're not going to rule the system. Nothing will change in your life. So it's literally the work of the Satan to get people busy with nothing. Absolute nothing. Go watch a 12-hour video about how the world is X amount of years old and there's... What do I care? What am I going to do with that information? How is it going to affect my life? Go watch a 3-hour video proving that the world is flat and you've been lied to. So what if it's flat or if it's blue or if it's purple? Like, what am I going to do? If it's flat, does that mean I could walk to Australia? No. If it's flat, does that mean that I could just throw a ball and my son can catch it in Israel? No. What changes in my life if the world is flat? Nothing. Nothing changes. Absolutely nothing. This is the argument of crazy people. The same thing with all these corona people. They keep sending emails and emails. Literally, I would love to learn their expertise in spamming. It doesn't matter how many times you block them. Somehow these emails keep coming. And every one of them is either a rabbi or some religious leader or concerned citizen. Oh, so many people have taken the vaccine and people are dying left and right. I don't see anybody dying left and right. I mean, people live next to me. I didn't see one person die. Nobody on the street dying. Nobody on the street. Are people dying? Yeah, but they die anyway. They die anyway. There's literally tens of millions of people that die every single year. Why didn't you care until now? If you look at the statistics, how many people died this year versus last year versus the year before? Nothing changed. Nothing is no more or less than any other year. Nothing changed. But now you're concerned. Oh, the streets are full of blood because of people that... What are you talking about? These are all battles of the Satan to keep people busy and therefore away from the Torah, because he makes them believe that they're heroes and they're discovering the truth. That means nothing. Nothing. Literally, it's like a person is given a job. Listen, you have a very important role. What's my role? Well, your role is to keep pressing this button. Oh, wow. That's what's going to happen? Oh, no. This button is the most important button in the world. Okay, great. I'm going to be the best at it. And all day, he presses the button. Presses the button. 20 years pass. He presses the button. The guys come, hey, how you doing? What are you doing? I'm pressing. You're good, you. He's pressing. He's not giving up. He's pressing. And one day, his coffee spills on the table. It's like, man, I gotta clean this up. Okay, so he cleans up, and by mistake, he pushes the thing that holds the button. And it flops over to the right, and he realizes that the button is not even connected to electricity. It's not connected to anything. It's just a piece of plastic with a button on it that they bought from some toy store. And he's been pressing this button for 20 years. That is all of the conspiracy people. Whether they are from the Jewish world or non-Jewish world, that's their life. They're pressing a meaningless button. Because even if you're right, nothing changes. Nothing. And guess what? More times than not, they're wrong. Which means that either way they live a lie. They live a lie because they're wrong. They live a lie because even if they're right, nothing changes, and therefore they're fighting for no reason whatsoever. The Torah teaches us to only do purposeful things, things that have a purpose beyond our life, beyond our name, beyond our family, have a purpose that is connected to eternity. Anything else is purposeless. Will the Rabbi and the Rabbi Kachlan's books be translated to English eventually? Eventually is a very long time. I can tell you this. People don't understand how difficult it is to translate specific types of books. I can't just go to Google Translate and just translate these things because there's specific language in the world of Torah that the systems do not have the capability of translating. And in fact, even using translators is not an easy job. Like I have, for example, we're working on one book, one tshuva that we're having translated. Now, I gave it to a Talmid Chacham. Talmid Chacham, extraordinary Torah scholar, and I paid him lots of money to translate this thing. He translated it, right? And this is, I don't know, a tshuva, let's say it's 50, let's just call it 50 pages, 55 pages. Okay? Now, I have to now go over it because I speak English and Hebrew. Rabbi Ephraim can only go over the Hebrew, so only I can do it. Because now, each segment of, let's say, half a page can take me anywhere from 30 to 60 minutes. Because I have to change things, not just because of translation issues, or grammatical issues, or readability issues, or simply sometimes there's missing information, or sometimes there's mistakes. So I'm working on this as often as I can. I mean, you could look at, I'll show you, this is on my desk anyway, so I'll show you. This is just this is the most, one page, okay? Look, this is what he translated. Look how many corrections I have here. Okay, there's over here there's another page. There's another page translation. Now he's an extraordinary Torah scholar, so there's no he wrote aloud because it's not allowed. No, this is to translate Torah, especially when it comes to responses, the biblical language is no simple feat. When you look at organizations like ArtScroll and they have teams of scholars working on the same exact thing. It's never just like one guy. And it takes a long time and very, very much time and resources. Here's another page. This is the next page. Look how many corrections. I mean, you can't see the details, but the point is that this I have to work on. And each one of these pages can take me anywhere from half hour to an hour. Sometimes I could spend 40 minutes on a single word. Because there isn't a perfect translation in English for specific words in Hebrew. Or sometimes there is one and he just didn't use it. And so the point is that to translate some of this stuff is very, very difficult. Now, if I was translating a very simple book from English to Hebrew, then that's certainly easier. But it still requires a lot of time. And so translation, if you don't have the resources, then you're not going to be able to get the team. And even if you have the resources, it's very difficult to get good quality translators. I'll tell you guys a little secret. I already translated or had somebody translate my book, first book that I wrote years ago. I had to translate it to English by somebody because I didn't have time to do it. Already, I think before I even printed the Hebrew version. I sent it to somebody, I paid him some money, and I had him translate it. He sent it back to me. Within the first chapter of the book, I threw it in the garbage. The first chapter of the book. I said, this is going to require so much work for me to fix it. I might as well do the whole thing myself. I threw it in the garbage. I have the file still on my computer, but the point is that it's I obviously figuratively speaking threw it in the garbage. I didn't throw my book full of Torah in the garbage, but figuratively speaking, I put it in the garbage. Why? Because to fix what he did, it's going to take me as much time as for me to do it myself. So even though there's some people that tell you, oh yeah, I translate stuff, it doesn't really mean that it's going to be up to speed. I have there's one guy, I got his book. He's a Talmid Chacham and a speaker also in Hebrew. And he wrote a well-known book in Hebrew. And he had it translated to English. And somebody gave it to me. I opened this book and I said, Ribono Shel Olam, this is like, what's going on with this translation? Like, I thought it was just a few pages, but then I started seeing this, like, the mistakes after mistakes. Things are not grammatically correct. Things are not written that way. You don't write the way you speak. You don't speak the way you write. And then one day, I called the guy. I called the Talmid Chacham. And I told him, listen, I was thinking about getting some of the books, maybe to distribute them or anything, but wanted to talk to you about maybe translating. He goes, oh, no. Right away. Like he's like, no, we did a great job with the translation, right? And I didn't want to make him feel bad. I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, yeah, I spent $17,000 getting that book translated. And he's not exaggerating. He's not exaggerating. I'm actually surprised that that it cost only that little. Some of these translations cost you double that. Some less, depending on who's translating and why and who. But the guy that translated his job, that guy's a thief. Why? The translation is not even worth $5. Because there's so many mistakes that it makes the book look bad. It makes the material look bad. And that's the problem. Now, so that's again, it's not an easy thing. Like there's software out there that translates stuff. You can't use that for books if you want good quality. You could use it for first edition and then, fix everything, but that's a lot of time. And that's the last reason of why it's hard for us to get some of our stuff translated is because you have to not only have a command of Hebrew, as well as a command in English, as well as a, relatively good writing ability, but you also have to have a command of Torah itself with specific laws, specific understanding of them to actually know what's being written before it's written. And last but not least, you have to have a lot of time because translating takes a long time. If you're not going to be able to translate anything if you just sit there for 15 minutes at a time. You have to put slots of an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours at a time at least. So it's very, very hard for me to block out an hour out of my time is already one of the most difficult things that for me to do. People always say, "Oh, listen, I want to talk to you on the phone." You don't understand. I don't have 5 minutes. 5 minutes I don't have. Unless it's urgent, it's critical, it's absolutely necessary, and it cannot be done any other way, I'm not getting on the phone or any calls. Why? Simple. If it can be done another way that's more efficient, I'm going to do it that way. Sometimes it cannot. So I do it. I get on the phone, I get on the conference call, but generally speaking, most things don't need. They don't need these things. So that's my point. When it comes to translation, one of the most difficult parts for me personally is time, finding time to do it. Now, I'm trying to build a team of people that are experts in technology and people that are experts in translation. Those are two teams that I want to build. I think it's easier to build a building of 500 stories than to build either one of those teams, for me at least. It's hard to get good quality people. A lot of people tell you they do one thing, they don't do it. Some people are just delusional. They think that they deserve a lot more than what they do, so it just becomes not worth it. Or just sometimes you trust people and they just don't do the job. So that's the thing. And even if they do, you still have to, go over it. So I'm very particular and very perfectionist when it comes to Torah. So I'm not going to let something that is not a quality come out. I'm just not going to do it. I'm not going to allow, if it's not a quality, it's not coming out. It's a quality in Hebrew, it came out in Hebrew. Can't get it in English, when we get. So anyone that wants to understand, to know as far as to the books cost a fortune. To translate a book can cost you tens of thousands of dollars, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, depending on the type of book, how big it is. It's not like $5. It's not like you put it in a software and it does everything. It's a lot. Now, people say, oh, no, I'll translate it on my own. Yeah, you could translate it. Maybe it's good for a few videos and stuff like that. But for like a book, when it matters what it says, every word matters, you can't afford to do that. You have to, know that everything is 100%. And that takes a lot of time. So, will we do it eventually? Bezrat Hashem, I'm working on it, to work on some things, but this is taking an enormous amount of time. There's other things taking an enormous time. Pray for me. What can I tell you? Pray for me. We're able to do some of this. If someone is part of the Jewish community, sees that the rabbi is there, honors heretics such as... should that person, what should he do? Listen, it depends on what kind of community it has. It depends what else the rabbi does, what's good versus bad. You can't just because a person likes certain rabbis or certain speakers, it doesn't make him all around bad. Sometimes people make mistakes, some people don't know, but the good outweighs the bad. So you can't just completely throw everybody in the garbage because of one defect that they have, because quite frankly, every one of us has a defect, if not 2 or 10 or 50. So if a person is going to be so harsh with judgment on others, they first have to be harsh with judgment on themselves. And if you're that harsh with judgment on yourself, you're not going to survive, because you're going to hate yourself and you're going to be miserable regardless. So a person has to be a little bit more reasonable and have a little more patience and know whether things are critical or not. Is there any particular sin or tikkun related to why people get migraines? If so, there's a way to identify a tikkun needed. Usually it's people that think things that are inappropriate. Think about idolatry, think about immorality, think about things that are heretical. These are usually reasons for that. It's things with the mind. It's things with what you think about. If somebody wanted to convert to Judaism and finds it hard to convert for whatever reason and decides to choose Islam because it's not Avodah Zarah, will Hashem punish him? Absolutely. He's going to go to Gehenom and not come out. At what point should a Jew take on wearing Rabbeinu Tam Tefillin? And once they put it on, are they obligated to do so always? Rabbi says that people, anytime somebody gets married, they need to start putting on Rabbeinu Tam Tefillin. There's a lot of Kedusha in Rabbeinu Tam Tefillin that's very unique to Rabbeinu Tam Tefillin. Usually people that study Torah with Tefillin on, they study with the Rabbeinu Tam Tefillin. So a person that is going to put on Rabbeinu Tam Tefillin, first of all, they need to know how to do it. They need to ask the rabbi or study about it, of how to do it, because there's no blessing when it comes to Rabbeinu Tam Tefillin. If you do a blessing, it's taking Hashem's name in vain. But needless to say, if you're married and you're not new to Judaism, you didn't convert like last week, and you learned Torah and you're keeping the basics and all that stuff, then certainly Rabbeinu Tam Tefillin should be added. I would say ask the rabbi, because he knows you best. Where do you stand as far as if you're ready for it or not? Because sometimes a person just starts doing tshuva, and a month after he's doing tshuva, he's already wants to fast twice a week. That's obviously too much. So again, your rabbi would know exactly where you stand. And Rabbeinu Tam Tefillin is certainly, if a person is let's say, not a beginner, and he's already established, he's already keeping Torah mitzvot, he's already learning every day, he's good, and he's married, he has to put on Rabbeinu Tam Tefillin. And it's not a matter of obligation, it's a necessity to put Rabbeinu Tam Tefillin. Number one, it doesn't take very long. Number two, it is adding extraordinary kedusha to a person's life that is not found anywhere else. It's not found anywhere else. Okay, tzaddikim, we're about 3 hours already in. I'll take one more question and I'm done, because I have another shiur anyway. What? Thank you for offering the free CDs. I went to your wonderful production website. I cannot find. Thank you for offering the free USB CDs to give in our communities. I'm interested in doing that. You make Kiruv people. I went to your website, but I could not find the store. I said the website, kiruvstore.org. Kiruvstore.org. Go to kiruvstore.org, or you can just send me a text and I'll send you a link. And it's a separate website. It's not part of the main website. It's a website that just has the free store. As far as selling idols, a jeweler is allowed to sell these JC pieces that rappers like. It's not just rappers that like them, it's all types of Christians that like them. It's not forbidden, but it's not recommended. Because people don't worship those crosses, and therefore there's no prohibition of owning a cross. In fact, Rabbi Ovadia, alav shalom, was gifted a cross from, I believe it was the Prince of Spain, or the King of Spain, and he kept it. And, when Rabbi Ovadia got sick, they went to some mekubal, and the mekubal says, he owns a cross, and that's why he has to throw it out. They went to Rabbi Ovadia and they told him that's what the mekubal says. Rabbi Ovadia, who was himself the biggest mekubal, says he's wrong. Allah allows it, and if Allah allows it, there's no problem with it. I'm not going to throw away the cross, and I will get healthy. And that's exactly what happened. He didn't throw away the cross, and he got healthy. Now, he got it as a gift, so for him it was a souvenir. And generally, people that are buying these things, they're not buying them as souvenirs, but still they're not worshiping them. They're not worshiping the cross. So there's no prohibition of selling a cross to anybody. But a Jew still should not do it because no blessing will come from it. I told this one time to somebody that was in a jewelry business, and he told me, but I was just about to buy these 2 crosses from somebody. They were a good deal, and it just so happened that I was talking to this person. I told him, no, you shouldn't buy these crosses. Buy something else. He didn't listen, and he later on came up to me and he had the honesty in him to admit that he ended up losing money on both of those crosses. Again, it's not a curse. It's just simply you're allowed to do it, but you shouldn't. But again, there's a difference between people buying it, selling it. It all depends on which position a person is in. Okay, about tzlacha to everybody. Thank you very much for learning with me. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it, learned from it. We'll share it, support it. Anyone that wants to donate to the organization can go to our website bezalhashem.org or bhtorah.org or go to the Kiruv store.org. It's also BH Kiruv. There's plenty of websites that we have ability to donate, ability to buy stuff, ability to support our kollel, ability to get stuff for free. Lots and lots of stuff that you can do. And Bezat Hashem, each one of you will be part of it in one way or another. Bracha v'atzlacha to everybody, and Bezat Hashem, we'll see each other next week.
Hello everyone, I'm Sunny Gigi from the Bezat Hashem organization, and I'm very excited to share that we're working on a new project, a very inspiring podcast called Returning to HaShem. Each episode is going to feature a special guest who will share his tshuva journey and amazing events that took place in their lives in order to return to HaShem. If you've been inspired by Rabbi Reuven, Rabbi Ephraim Kaplan, or by the organization, I invite you to share your story and give our fellow Jews chizuk and hope that they too can follow in the same path. If you're interested, please send an email to sunny@bezalhashem.org. Thank you for all your support. May Hashem strengthen us all to do tshuva every day.